Greetings, brothers and sisters. Holy ravioli, Batman. All right, so I'm going to start. I started this video with other topics, and I was going to end up here with Erika Kirk. I didn't know she had done this, but I was going to talk about her anyway, and this was a complete blessing. You know, I have a lot of various memes. I have like hundreds of memes. I don't show them as much. There's two boats and ho! That's one of my first ones, one of my original ones I used to show all the time. It's appropriate for this setting. But Erika Kirk delivered a fucking meme for the ages. I'm just going to show you the meme, and I'll comment more on it later. But I'm pretty stoked about it. And so here it is. And then I'll get into the other, stuff I already did, and I'll come back to this later. But here it is.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
Okay, so a few people commented about this guy. Is it Sean Ryan's his name? Ex-military CIA shill is what people were saying. Probably Israeli shill. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know anything about him. But I want to say something here. And I didn't, let me show you this part first. So I want to show you his altar here, right? And it worked out great. I didn't know they were praying, but I had saved this. Let's just watch this here.
And our selection process is unique, unparalleled.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, and so
I like that cross on your jacket. I thought it'd be good to start this episode with a prayer.
Boom. Pray, motherfuckers.
Absolutely.
You okay with that?
That's what we all should do.
All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be super simple here.
Super simple prayers.
Jesus, I just want to thank you for having Brian here today, and we have just a couple of goals.
Okay, so they do this prayer here. Oh, let's go back. But let me show you this here. Trying to find the altar here that they're. Here it is. So here they are. They were praying them a second ago, and they showed at some point they come back here. And they're this is the end of the prayer here that they're they have this. He has this altar where he does his show, and you can see that there's a tattered flag there. I don't know why it's doing that. There's a tattered flag here. Maybe that has to do with some of his military service. He has some sort of, I assume that's like an AR-15 or something. And then some kind of smaller machine gun here. And a lot of alcohol. This is a bar, right? Bar area. This flag of some, I don't know if that's where he got that flag from. So maybe some award. But mostly it's just alcohol, right? It's a very weird, it's like an altar. It's just like some kind of, them praying right in front of this altar. But it's filled with shit that has nothing to do with God, right? And, he's a military guy, and this guy's a security guy for Charlie Kirk, the failed security guy. Like, whatever this interview was supposed to be, this guy it was on his watch that Charlie Kirk got shot. Like, he failed. Like, this is a failure, right? Like, life is full of failures. Like, I don't, condemn people for failing because, if you are a godly person, God gives you instructions to do something, you never fail. If you're doing what God wants you to do, then there's no failure. You're playing your part, your role. Failure is what you think it is, right? If it was God's will that Charlie Kirk should be shot, killed, and that's what happened, because we don't know what really happened there that day. But if that, we're talking about the official story here. If it was God's will that was happened, that was his destiny. It was ordained. It was prophesized. There's nothing you can do about it. If something's God's will, then it isn't a failure. But this guy doesn't think about it that way, right? They talk about Charlie Kirk being a martyr and how his organization is going to be more powerful than ever, but that's not the case. The organization's imploding. I want to talk about Candace Owens being threatened. I got a few things to show you with that, and something to do with her. So a little bit of her stuff. Everything's they just get so fucking weird. Like this stuff gets so fucking weird, right? These people are weird, and so this guy failed, and this guy, whatever this thing is going on, this, with the red lights are always a red flag because of, it represents, the color red represents quite a number of things, initiation, rituals, of course, like blood and Satan. I mean, things that people think about. It's like the color of hell, whatever these things are. They often bathe the audience in red at rock concerts, throw up the devil's horns. But again, like I said, this is an altar. Like this is what this guy worships. Guns are not godly. Like they're not of God, right? They are destruction machines. They're killing machines. And I've shot firearms before, and there's things I like about it, but I'm very aware of it. Being a source of something that's just there to kill things. It's there. Guns have one purpose. I mean, if you're hunting, and that's something completely different. But but anything other than hunting, guns are for killing other people or hurting them. I mean, it's to do damage to other people. Like it has one purpose. And you can say, people hurt people, guns don't hurt people, all that bullshit, left wing, right wing, Second Amendment bullshit stuff. Guns are killing machines, and there are a lot of incompetent, mentally ill people out there. Like 80% of people are really, just bad people, or not just necessarily bad people, but make bad decisions. People who are using alcohol and drugs. Like, this guy has all this alcohol with firearms. Like alcohol and firearms, I mean, you're not supposed to drink and drive. Having access to a gun, let's say you're emotionally triggered, you're spiraling, and you take alcohol. Alcohol it impairs your ability to feel God. All these things that you take, drugs and alcohol, that impair your ability, they're not supplements. They don't enhance your ability. They don't make you better. They make you worse. They make you stupider. They impair your decision-making abilities. And you can't feel God's love. I mean, alcohol doesn't help you in terms of your spiritual growth. It maybe have some benefit if it's, you're dealing with stress. I mean, not that I would ever suggest drinking. I don't like alcohol. I stopped drinking in my 20s. I mean, we're an alcohol culture. Like, how many, I mean, if you see a movie or TV show that doesn't show somebody drinking, it's an oddity, right? It used to be smoking and drinking. So it's not good for you physically. And, firearms and alcohol don't mix, right? I mean, when you need to be extra careful and extra, if you're dealing with something as dangerous as a firearm that's there to, it's something that kills people, and alcohol doesn't make those things better, right? Like, it doesn't help you, be careful and make good decisions. But neither one of those things have anything to do with God, right? I mean, guns exist, so they're part of our culture, and there's a lot of people out there who you shouldn't have access to firearms. And, I mean, my daughter was given a gun, and she took LSD and committed suicide. I didn't know about the LSD till my other daughter did some research on this, and, that was quite disturbing. And I don't know who, my daughter was impulsive as it was. She had issues. She was she was an at-risk kid, and no one would think it was a good idea to give her a gun. I wasn't really that psyched about her learning how to drive because she was, very reckless. She was kind of a thrill seeker type person. And she took chances, like, she climbed up on roofs. She did shut that I was, made me, like just even as a young kid, she was somebody who, was a little bit reckless and, just, anyways. And so she was somebody that shouldn't have a gun. And like, apparently she took LSD and had some kind of a bad trip and killed herself. So, I could say that there's lots of people out there. I mean, it's not some God-given right to have a gun because, it's just like anything else, just like driving or anything that can take somebody else's life. And, anything that's potentially dangerous, you have to have, like, with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing, right? Just a stupid Spider-Man movie, but that's a true thing. Gun is a power, right? It has the power over life and death. And, everybody who's seen this, like that kid who got up on the roof and shot Charlie Kirk, should he have had a gun? I mean, again, don't believe in that story, but that's the official story. So anyways, I was like, when people started to write comments, negative comments about this guy, about him being whatever he is, I was like, yeah, I want to go back and revisit this altar thing, because I mentioned it in the video, but it's kind of weird. And then when I searched for this, I had to find this channel and I had to find this video again. And on his YouTube channel, or a YouTube video on his channel, he's got this thing with Tucker Carlson.
They can be very giving, and it appears that you're being led into a group.
Oh, I'm watching that right now. What's up?
I'm watching it right now.
Yes.
And then you're fucking done.
Of course.
But not even realizing it until you're in.
You mean like Charlie Kirk?
Oh, yes.
And I think I've come close, and I always, like, if I even get a fucking inkling of that happening, I'm like, nope, done, not going.
No, it's not going to do it. Here they are.
Like, he's gone. Fuck that guy. He took all the money and left. He's, in whorehouses in Babylon, but now he's here. It's all forgiven. Complex things are very easy to understand.
Boom, they're doing this thing here.
We thought these people were for us. They actually sold us out. Well, that's certainly true. They're captives. They're absolutely captives, and you can tell who's free.
You feel bad for them?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Why? They fucking sold
They're
us out.
living in hell because they're in bondage.
They sold you out.
The Sean Ryan Show, Tucker Carlson, episode #256. Both of them flashing some Illuminati eyes here. Ryan and Carlson together. Like this fucking shillathon. All right. It's so fucking weird. It's just so whatever. Let me show you the stuff with, I guess let's do I want to get to Erika Kirk, who's disappeared. But let's go with the Candace Owens thing first here. Okay, so this is I got a couple of tweets by other people. Apparently Twitter and Reddit are blowing up with people saying Candace Owens is going to be murdered. Because, this is about her now, right? I'll get into that. All of a sudden, it shifted from being about Charlie to being about her. The president we voted for, the president we got. So this is going to, we're going to come back to this. I have something else to show you with Trump's. So I think this happened this morning or yesterday, November 22nd. So yesterday, Saturday. This happened. Somebody asked him about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I know that before you had a fight with Elon Musk and you guys were able to work it out. No, I get along with everybody. We see the same thing happening.
So he said, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I know before you had a fight with Elon Musk and you were able to work it out. And Trump said, I get along with everybody. This motherfucker just said, I get along with everybody.
Taylor Greene, I know that before you had a fight with Elon Musk and you guys were able to work it out. No, I get along with everybody. We see the same thing happening between you and some. Sure, why not? I mean, I get along with everybody.
He gets along with nobody. I mean, he gets along with fucking nobody. Like, everybody that he has a relationship with goes south, right? And, this is, there's people, I guess, handlers and people that he has to kowtow to or whatever it is, Israel, Netanyahu. But, he was mad at Netanyahu when Netanyahu endorsed or, accepted Biden as a president. Remember that shit? After he thought, Netanyahu said he was the greatest president, the greatest friend to Israel that in the office of the presidency ever. But for him to say I get along with everybody when that's just the opposite is true. Like, he gets along with nobody. Like, for short periods of time, yeah, sure. Until they do something. Either he, sometimes they do something like Marjorie Taylor Greene did something he disliked, right? Or they don't do something he asked them to do, or he just makes something up, like it's in his own mind. But he turns on people and throws them under the bus, or maybe he needs to throw somebody under the bus, so he does. but he gets along with nobody, right? It's not not for any long duration. He's a horrible friend. He's a horrible husband. He's a horrible, president. He's a horrible boss. He's the worst of the worst. He's in it for himself, and everyone else is there to serve him. And so, this is going to come back around. We'll talk about this in a bit. There's that movie, I forget the name of it, Don't Care, Don't Tell Me, Don't Need to Know. There's this guy who wrote weird movies like Being John Malkovich and the Internal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It was about removing memories of people. Like if you had an ex-girlfriend, that was what the movie was about. An ex-girlfriend deleted memories of this guy, and then he deleted her memories, this kind of stuff. Jim Carrey was in that. But weird movies. This guy writes weird movies. And there's a movie with Meryl Streep and Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper was really into things. Like he was really obsessed with things. And Meryl Streep was a reporter that, she didn't have that quality. And there's a whole thing with that. And Nicolas Cage played the guy who writes the movie. The guy who writes these movies. So he had 4 or 5, weird movies. Kind of some creepy movies. And at some point he was writing the movie and he said, I've inserted myself into the script, right? I've inserted myself in, he's writing this story and he made up a twin brother that, he doesn't have in real life. Nicolas Cage played a double role. But he was lamenting that how he couldn't make a story out of this movie, it was a true story he was making into a movie. And so he inserted himself into the script, and Nicolas Cage was playing him in the movie saying that, right? But that's what Candace Owens has done here. Candace Owens has now made this about her. She slowly has moved the story from Charlie Kirk to be about her, and now she's gone for a circle, including this Macron thing, and how these planes, these mystery planes that are from Egypt, when you go down the rabbit hole and there's foreign planes, military planes landed in America and are involved in not only the Charlie Kirk assassination, but the Macron suing her, right? And so, then she dropped this. She waited till, some time had passed. And she said, Andrew Colvert said that she and Tucker Carlson were on a list to be murdered and that they were under threat and they need to lay low after Charlie Kirk died. And then in a follow-up conversation, he said they really wanted to get her and Tucker Carlson, but they did Charlie Kirk first. And she surmised, or she, put out this theory that they killed Charlie Kirk to send a warning to her and Tucker Carlson. And so, it wasn't about Charlie Kirk anymore. He was just a pawn and a prop, and she was the big fish that they were targeting, right? And so, it's a fucked up thing when the story becomes about you, when you've made it all about how your friend who was completely shackled up, and he disavowed you when the guys who, when his Israeli handlers said they were going to withdraw their shekels if he didn't cut ties with her, and she stopped being a part of Turning Point. And so, it doesn't sound like a friend to me, but she was, really upset about him dying. She did a better job of mourning. Everyone said it. She was more believable than Erika J. Kirk. And so, now she's somehow become the story, and the internet is abuzz. My wife was saying it's all over Reddit and these other places. So I'm going to show you 2 tweets that the Twitter gods recommended to me, the Twitter's overseers that have to do with this. But here she's talking about how there was something called Operation Valhalla. The name of this video is See You in Valhalla, Charlie. This is where the Vikings die in battle and they get to go in Valhalla, and they get a Viking funeral where they send a boat out to a boat with the body out, and they shoot flaming arrows in a boat that's filled with combustibles, and the person burns at sea, and their ashes float to the bottom of the sea, and their soul goes up to Valhalla, the place where warriors go to die if you're a Viking. And they had an Operation Valhalla, and I could barely listen to it because this is, it's just all down the rabbit hole stuff with no end in sight. But this thing happened here.
3 hours, And of course, yes, he did say something about Valhalla. Let's take a listen to what Kash Patel said.
Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch.
Okay, that's a fucked up thing to say, right? Look at this little fucking dweeb with the fucked up eyes who is a lawyer, right? He's just a lawyer. He used to work for, he was a public defender who worked for criminals in Miami. And somehow he made it to the FBI and he became an FBI lawyer, which I'm sure they don't like lawyers over there anywhere any more than lawyers are liked anywhere else. And he always talks about like he's a cop. He dresses up, little cop uniform, even though he's a tiny little, whatever he is. We got to let cops be cops. He talks like a tough guy. And he says, let's listen to what he said there again. Here we go.
Say something about Valhalla. Let's take a listen to what Kash Patel said.
Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch.
What watch do you have? What watch was Charlie Kirk giving to you? There's a movie called The Sentinel. And I think there was 2 movies, and this was an old movie. I watched as a kid. Really creepy movie. And Burgess Meredith, the guy who played Rocky's, Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, Rocky's trainer, his boxing trainer, it's called Mick, right? This tough guy Mick, played a very refined gentleman devil. And there was a young girl who had tried to commit suicide that went to move in this building. And there was an old nun who was in the top floor of the building who just stared out the window. And as the movie progresses, and it gets really creepy, I mean, it was totally inappropriate for me to watch it. But it seared into my mind. I was a little kid whenever, I was in elementary school when I watched this. And she was, it turns out that she was supposed to replace the nun, and the nun was called the Sentinel, and she oversaw the gates of hell. And this building was hell. And she was keeping all the demons from coming out of hell. And the only way that they could stop that transition was to get her to commit suicide. So all these people in the building, including the devil, were trying to get her to commit suicide, right? So that she wouldn't take over this position. Because if she committed suicide, she'd go to hell, and she wouldn't be able to fulfill this prophecy, this job, and all the demons would be let out on the world. That's like somebody who, has a job where, we've got to watch. Like, Charlie Kirk wasn't watching over everything. He was watching over his fucking shekels. And you're not watching over anything. Your weird-ass fucking honeypot girlfriend, right? Like, what are you guys watching over? Like, what do you guys keep it? I mean, you guys are both, a part of the criminal organization that's fucking bringing us to World War III, right? And so, it's kind of hilarious, like this fucking clown. How did that happen? Oh, here.
Say something about Valhalla. Let's take a listen to what Kash Patel said.
Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Probably just a coincidence, you guys.
So this thing that she said that there was an Operation Valhalla, and then he says it, that's kind of a funny joke, but we don't know if there's an Operation Valhalla. She could have just made it up. And it's a weird word to use because they don't believe that fucking Nordic shit, right? That's not a part of being a Christian, which these guys all claim to be. You mean Charlie Kirk's not in heaven? He's in Valhalla, right? Did you guys give a Viking funeral? Is that why we never saw the funeral? Because you guys buried him at sea? Is that what happened? So it's just so fucking weird. Like this is, and her inserting herself in the story. Okay. So let's get back to this other thing here. So YouTube recommended this to me. I'm not YouTube, Twitter. I don't know who the person is that posted this. Pray for Candace Owens' prayer hands, which I call pranam's hands or namaste hands. The French and Israeli government want her dead, and you won't hear a word about it from the mainstream media. No, you won't. They want her dead, and mainstream media isn't going to say shit about it. And so this is, these are just, my inner, or my being made aware of this, my wife telling me about it. And they're lighting up Twitter, and they're lighting up, because she's made them do that. She's really good at getting attention for herself. I mean, she's really good. Like, she's usurped, Erika Kirk is dust. She made the decision not to do what everyone wanted her to do and go after Erika, which was the big whale in the, this big story. She was the, of all of it. She's hinted at other people. She won't get specific about, who's responsible for all this bullshit that's happening. But she's, all these things that have happened, right? All the things that have transpired on her show. But now she's the center. Now her life is in danger, right? Now she has the victim conscience. She's the righteous one that's searching for Charlie's real killer. And there's these mystery planes, red plane, blue plane, it's the Dr. Zeus stuff, right? And she's the one now. Like, she's the center of the story. So that other tweet I just showed you was from this morning. I saw it. Pray for Candace Owens. So I clicked on it, and immediately they send me this one. The next time I looked at my phone, they had sent me this one.
So it's very rare that I ever feel like Candace may or may not be afraid for her life at a level where like the threat is exceptionally high and she's taking this very seriously. So she just sent me a message and she gave me permission to report on this. And I just want to read what Candace has been working on that she believes like is like the right over the target and why there's now a hit on her head at the highest levels. And it looks like
We're going to kill Candace next. And that's what Netanyahu's saying to Trump.
Trump over here is going to let the Israelis attempt to assassinate Candace Owens. If there's even an attempt on her life and Trump isn't taking this at the absolute highest level, like he is the most disgusting dirtbag, antichrist piece of shit that we've ever had for a president.
Really? He isn't that now? They all suck. Like, I can't rate them. It's not my job to rate them because you can't really rate people's shittiness. Because, some of these people are actually higher developed souls that are doing God's work in terms of destroying America. Like that, that's always a possibility. But you think that she's not that already? That shackled up motherfucker? Like this guy, he clearly is a part of the cover-up of whatever's going on with Charlie Kirk. He's clearly part of that old bullshit. And he's, everything that he's done. And he's obviously going to choose his shekels and whatever Israel over Candace. But the thing is that if they kill Candace, nothing would happen. It would, the story would go out. Everyone would say it's Israel, and it would be, out there, and maybe 40% of Americans would believe that Candace was killed by Israel, and then they would think, well, Charlie Kirk probably too, maybe whatever it is. Even if it was 80% of Americans, all believe that Israel killed Candace and Charlie Kirk, and any number of things, and they all turn on Israel. Shit ain't gonna happen, right? I mean, there'll be some words said by some politicians, and there'll be some things said in the mainstream media, but nothing's going to fucking happen. So they could kill her anytime and not really have any repercussions, right? I mean, like, Jeffrey Epstein was, how many people who thought Jeffrey Epstein's suicide was fake? And that happened under Trump's watch. And what's happened since then? I mean, the American people are limp dick and impotent and just incapable don't have no leverage and no fight, and other than turning into a mob, and it'd be the weakest, most pussified mob in history of the world. So there's nothing anybody can do about any of this shit. They can kill her anytime they want, and so why haven't they, right? She's not. I mean, she's just talking about fucking red plane, blue plane, yellow plane, blue plane, all that shit, right? Red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. Like, I mean, it gets down the rabbit hole. And now she's inserted herself as the, fuck talking about Charlie Kirk. They're trying to kill me now. It's always been about me. And a little bit about Tucker, but, me, mostly me. Me.
So she sends me a message and she said, I had not put two and two together of why the White House got so involved in the Bridget story. It never made sense for Sergio Gore to be so invested that he called me screaming about it and for Trump to call me about it. It's because she is a Mossad asset.
Boom. She's a Mossad asset. She not only has a dick, but she also said that it's an uncircumcised dick because she was a Mossad asset. Kaboom.
The chick with a dick is a Mossad asset.
Boom. Exactly.
That I accidentally stumbled upon to a bigger story than I had realized. It is specifically what I had been researching in my Becoming Bridget Season 2 that caused the panic. I had stumbled upon the oddity in the Bridget family origin story. The alleged story is that the Trognup family were...
The Trognoops? Wait, the Trognoops are involved? Holy shit, the Trognoops. Fucking Trognoops.
prominent family of generational bakers from the town of Amiens beginning in 1881 through to now uninterrupted. She said, but somebody had messaged me and made me aware that this is impossible. Nazis invaded and occupied Amiens during World War II. Virtually the entire town was destroyed during the bombing and that the bakery hadn't survived. They had source maps and photos to prove that. She then went on to say that I was beginning to research that and I stumbled upon paperwork which suggested that actually Bridget's family came from a high-ranking family of Nazis, and similar to Operation Paperclip in America, her family had been given new identities and had their Nazi backgrounds wiped clear. She goes, that is the story I was working on before Charlie got shot. So now...
Wait a minute. There's something about the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds are here. And so now rightfully asked why the factor of the Trognoops. It was a huge chocolate factory had come to survive. I'll tell you a little thing called Judenrat. There's a Judenrat there. This story was huge in Israel, and they never could keep it leaked back in the 50s. But Ben Gurion was involved as Jabarinsky Googled that. Aaron Hanson and the Rothschilds. Kaboom. It's all there. It's just all fucking coming together. This is these down the rabbit hole, Glenn Beck, bulletin board, beautiful mind, where you're linking all these things with string and pictures and this is, and this is Brigitte McCrome and she's got a dick and it's a Mossad run dick and now they want to kill me. And why haven't they, right? Why didn't they do this before? Why did they, do it to Charlie? There's all these questions, unanswered questions, and they're never going to be answered because this is a never-ending rabbit hole. And the thing about these kind of channels and people, if they give you the resolution or the answer, then you have no reason to come back, right? So they just, it's like the equivalent of Lost as a YouTube truther. These fake truthers that are, if they solve one mystery and then they give you 4 more. And so you're like, well, that one's solved. I have resolution of that mystery, but now I got these other ones to, this cliffhangers, and it's just never ending, right? Okay, so this dude is Megyn Kelly. And she is, Megyn Kelly honors Charlie Kirk's legacy with audience Q&A. His legacy was he took a lot of shekels and he lied to a bunch of college kids about Israel, and it was pretty bad, and, whatever. But they all want to get in on the Charlie Kirk, they all want to get a piece of his brand.
We were supposed to be here tonight with a different Charlie.
Yeah, it's so sad, Megyn. No, you're so sincere. You're so great, Megyn.
Stop that Charlie Kirk was supposed to join me on. I'm like getting emotional just thinking about it.
So yeah, I'm gonna fake cry. I'm gonna take a $100 bill and dab it on my corner of my eye like Erika J. Kirk.
It's only been 2 months since we lost him.
Only 2 months. It's 2 fucking months, and I'm I'm fucking in tears right now. I'm so sad.
And he wanted to come here. We would have taken Charlie anywhere, of course. And he said, I'd love to come to Bakersfield.
I'm a Bakersfield boy, and that's where the shekels are.
There's
fields of shekels in Bakersfield. The bakers feel like they bake shekels there.
Connection with
I
you
want
guys.
like a baked shekel pie. I want a fucking croissant with shekels in it.
He specifically asked for this stop. We said, of course,
Why Bakersfield, Charlie? The shekels. The baked fucking shekels.
To have you. And as you know, we wound up booking Erika Kirk, who's going to come on Saturday because...
Saturday? Well, where's fucking Erika Kirk? Where the fuck is Erika? I didn't even know she was there.
She needs to be by her babes, so we're going to interview her in Glendale.
She needs to be by her babes, but not on Saturdays. If she takes the weekends off, she's like a mom 5 days a week.
But I can't help, like every
Oh,
second
she's
since
going to Arizona.
we landed in Bakersfield, thinking about Charlie.
Thinking about Charlie. Fucking Charlie. All right, so let's go check out Erika Kirk, see if she's still crying. Okay, so they give you a little taste here. I don't know if they're going to put the whole thing out. I don't know if it exists somewhere else. I'll check that out on today's Sunday. I'll check that out tomorrow. And I don't know how much of Erika Kirk I can take. But here's Megyn Kelly bringing her haircut because she doesn't look enough like a dude. She's got to do this weird, this weird haircut. But she said she's booking Erika Kirk. So we booked Erika Kirk, because we're going to get Charlie because he's dead, But booking, that's what you do with criminals, like book them, Dano, right? But is that what you do with a grieving widow, a professional grieving widow?
I feel angry against God, but I kind of do. I mean,
I understand.
how do you make sense
I understand. I'm such a saint. I'm so much more evolved than you. I understand, my child.
of that? And do you have any anger when you think about it? Not towards the Lord, but in general.
The enemy would love for me to be angry.
Oh, my God. Jesus Christ, she's so fucking fake. The enemy. Who is this fucking enemy? You just say it's the fucking Satan. The enemy, you had like, Satan is on you're like one of Satan's children. Like, you're Satan's spawn with this fake-ass fucking insincere, inauthentic shit that you do. I forgot how bad she sucks. It's been a while since I've seen the enemy would want. Let's listen to that shit again.
Not towards the Lord, but in general.
Not the Lord. Up to the Lord. You guys are fucking Lord Satan. Like, which Lord are you talking about here?
The enemy would love for me to be angry. He would love it.
He would love it. He would love it. He would so love it. He would just sit there and go, I love it when I'm the enemy. And I just love it. I just love it when Erika Kirk is angry at the Lord. When she's angry at the Lord, I love it. Woo! Satan doesn't love anything, right? I mean, there isn't a Satan like there, Christian, whatever. I've talked about the Bible. But, people's egos, everyone's a potential demon or a potential devil. And when your ego is in full, has hijacked your soul's purpose and your soul's life, and you become a full-out demon, you don't love, right? Your capacity to love disappears because, God is love, and you have shut off your connection. You have done your best to disconnect yourself from God. I mean, you can never be totally disconnected from God, but, as much as you can be. And your capacity for love is, it's dormant and there's no chance of you loving anything. He would love it. Woo! Woo! Look at her bringing it.
Because it would distract me from building what Charlie entrusted to me.
Yeah, you're fucking doing a horrible job. I'll show you this in a second. Your YouTube channel's imploding. You're insincere. The thing about her is she's on the radar of the left, and then all the people who are on the right who are, see her as fake and insincere. And, just because she was married to Charlie Kirk, in air quotes, like it seems like a fake marriage. But, they don't buy it. Like, people aren't buying her shit. Like, she's getting applause here. And, she's still wearing black. And, at what point is she going to cry again? It's like, and she's not a serious person. She's a smiley, bubbly, happy person who is now supposed to conjure up grief, and she's not that good of an actress. She's good at flirting with guys and touching them and smiling and laughing and, these things, which we've seen in all of her videos with Charlie. And, it's fake, but it's not nearly as difficult to watch as this fake grieving stuff, right? But before, no one gave a shit about her. Like, people disliked Charlie on the left and some other people. And we now know Charlie as Charlie Shekels, and he's a piece of shit fake fuck, right? So, he took all that money to promote a genocide. You don't come back from that. And it's certainly, he's not a Jesus, he's a Judas. But again, I don't know how many people understand that or know that. But lots of people are just, she's on their radar and they're not buying her bullshit, right? And, so this is bad because she's the star of the show. Like she is definitely the one who has the most energy. But it's, you know, I think it's like she's got like 5% approval, and she can't carry an audience. She can't carry a, you know, a network, and she can't do any of these things that she needs to do to keep Turning Point going. And, you know, people just, I mean, it's kind of nauseating, right? What she does. It's repulsive.
Raising our babies, Turning Point, being
TPUS gay, you mean, with all those gay dudes over there?
there for the team, being there for what the future holds. And if I had any amount of anger in my heart and spirit, the Lord would not be able to use me.
It's just, he wouldn't be able to use me if I had anger in my heart. That's what the enemy wants. And, you know, all I got is this fake act that I do, this bullshit grieving thing that I do. And, you know, there's people who lap up my words, a few, you know, scattering fans. And that's, you know, that's what the Lord using me for.
And every single day, just how Charlie did, stood on stage, he would say, "Here I am, Lord, use me."
And, you know, give me fucking shekels. Make shekels rain down on me like I'm a stripper at a kibbutz. Like I'm a stripper at a kibbutz. Make it rain, Lord.
I had that anger in my heart, that foothold from the enemy.
The foothold, the enemy would come inside me.
He wouldn't be able to.
I know at Charlie's memorial.
Okay, she's not buying that. Like Megyn Kelly's like doesn't know what to do with that fucking weird shit she's doing.
Right across.
There you go, dab those fucking eyes. She's good at the fake crying. Like she was actually producing tears there. So kudos for you. You know, those fake tears.
Yeah.
Those are real tears, I mean, or whatever they are.
What
is this fucking... This is like that lacy shit and fucking... What is this, like lingerie kind of stuff? Like, what is she wearing here? It's, you know, this isn't... I mean, is that a dress? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. You know, I don't give a shit about clothes, but... You know, and she's wearing white, and she always wears white. Like, they coordinated this shit. You know, I mean, it's just the grieving widow and the fucking, you know, this dude with this, you know, penis tucking...
Extraordinary moment where you forgave his accused killer.
That wasn't crazy. His accused killer. Well, why would you forgive him if he isn't convicted yet? Why can't you wait till he's convicted? Because that was your fucking moment, right? You had to do it when the attention was on you.
And I mean, I looked and I said, that's the most powerful, strongest thing I've ever seen anybody do in my life.
Oh my God, you shit me. How bad can you suck, Megyn?
And then somebody helped me understand because I thought...
I looked at this, I'm like, it's only 2 minutes and 49 seconds. And I'm like, wow, this is too long. I don't know if I can make it. Her dabbing her fucking eyes.
I could never do it. I could never do it. And somebody said to me, forgiveness is an action, not an emotion. And I was like, okay, that's getting me closer to feeling like I could do it. If I don't actually have to feel loving in my heart toward the person.
No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to feel loving to the heart. No, that's not how it works. No, let me tell you, I'm such an expert in forgiveness. You know, here's the thing. You know, you can, I mean, in terms of the stuff I know about spirituality and some scars, you know, there are some scars that people have, impressions from past lives or things that are hidden inside of them. And you know, like, for example, there was a woman who was a respected judge. You know, I worked this job when I was going to get my master's degree. You know, this is years ago when I was in New Mexico. My ex was kind of flipping out. She was, you know, abuse survivor, and she was having her fucking mental breakdowns. And I was going to graduate school, and then I worked at this outpatient treatment center for kind of rich people. Some of them were like semi-famous, or they came from like, you know, well-to-do families, popular people knew them, or they, you know, successful people, rich people. And they would come to this it was like a healing center if they were addicts. You know, they were addicts, like mostly drug and alcohol, but sex addicts, or some of them were suicidal, depressed. And they would come there, and it was out in the woods in, you know, New Mexico, pretty nice place, but it was fucked. The guy who ran it was really weird. And these people were like really fucked up. And I used to have to pick them up at the airport. Like there was a time where I was supposed to pick up a young woman, and she gets off the plane. She's with a guy, and I think it's her, but like I don't, I had you get these like write-ups, so I'm like one of those fucking stooges sitting there with a sign, "Hey, Miss Jones," like fucking, and really uncomfortable thing for me. And then after driving back to Santa Fe, which was 2 hours from the Albuquerque airport, an hour, like 15 minutes. And this girl walks by me and I'm like, I think that's her and I think she's drunk. And, I can't just go up to her. She's with a guy. And I'm like, hey, are you going to a fucking treatment? It's like there's confidentiality. And, I'm not a social person. But there's only one young woman getting off the plane. And eventually, like an hour or two later, I have to get her page. And she shows up fucking drunk. And she was drinking on the airport. And I called the place up and they're like, bring her to the fucking clinic, some other place. It's just uncomfortable. I mean, things like that. So I'm supposed to pick up this woman, and she's a former judge, a well-respected judge and a prominent judge in a big city. Somebody who's in the newspaper, somebody who's respected. And she started to smoke crack. And within a month, she blew through all of her savings, blew up her marriage. She had kids and a husband. And she was prostituting herself for money so she could buy crack, right? And she never showed. I went to pick her up. And, she was, somebody who no one knew she was a crackhead, right? That no one knew she had a crackhead inside of her. And so you never know what you have inside of you. And also there's repressed emotion. And you might think you might forgive somebody. Maybe one of your kids does something and, was a little bit careless and somehow it results in one of their siblings dying. And, the kid's not really at fault. And maybe you left the kids alone with something, they weren't properly supervised and it's kind of your fault too as a parent. And it goes on and you forgive your kid or you're not even talking about it. You say it's not your fault. But deep down you sort of blame them. Like you're not conscious of it, right? Something like that. So you never know, what you feel. Like you see this all the time where people feel things and they don't even know it. And they get into an argument and shit comes out, right? They say things and, they're repressed feelings and emotions. And so forgiveness isn't something that you can just do on command. Like you can't just say, like everything that she does is fake. Everything she does is performative. You can't just say, I forgive you. It's not fucking real. And the kid we don't even know if he's guilty. So, what the fuck are you doing? What happens if it comes out the kid wasn't even the shooter? Do you take back your forgiveness? Do you apologize for helping to get the kid feel like, put the kid in a dangerous position because like everybody thinks he did it and he didn't? Like you don't have the evidence, you don't know, right? And so, but it's just so fucking fake.
But I wonder, how do you, if you could say something to him, if you say something to his parents, what would it be? Would it be anger? Would it be sympathy? What would it be?
That's a good question. It wouldn't be sympathy. It wouldn't be anger.
Why? I say, why? Why did you do, why? Why did you do it, young man? Young man, Charlie liked them, young man. Young man, I forget that, young man. Why though? Why, young man?
How do you put this? Anything that I could ever wish upon him or that family would pale in comparison of the justice of God. And so I would look at them.
Woo! Justice of God, woo! If God was delivering justice, then why was Charlie dead, right? Charlie was somebody who promoted a genocide. He was on the side of genociders and much worse stuff. He pushed for Trump, who's a nightmare. All the bad things that are going to come out of turning points promoting Trump and promoting Israel. There's already a bunch of it, and, when it leads to World War III, Charlie is a piece of that, right? But if God wants World War III, then, who gives a shit what Charlie contributed or not, because it was going to happen. And the same thing with his death. If you're a real spiritual person, you only can get mad at God. And it's good to get mad at God if you're, or at least, it's honest. Like, you shouldn't pretend you're not mad at God, because, you have to you can't fake it. Like, you got to, your relationship with God, there's no faking it. If you're angry, you can't, put on an act. God, God's within you, right? Like, the divinity's within you. So it's not like you can hide anything from God, right? It's not like you can go out there and say, I forgive you, I forgive that young man, like some bullshit thing that she did. And so she's supposed to say something to this kid. What's up, bro? Like, she doesn't have anything. Like, she's just got these weird bumper sticker, fucking pseudo-spiritual, pseudo-religious, Christian platitudes that are just, they're not sincere. She hasn't demonstrated any real grief, right? I mean, it's all a fucking act, and it's just so fucking superficial and weird.
Almost like
Megan's team fucked her with a big fucking ad for this other one up in.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
She fucked me on this one because I wish I could use that as a meme. I wish I had this somehow, without this in it. Maybe there's a longer version coming. I need to get that. I'm so glad I'm not you. I need that as a meme. Like, I just, maybe I could somehow AI it and they could remove this and, somehow make it work. Like, so she, didn't need this ad here. I mean, it's disrespectful. She's already pimping her next video. Maybe the whole thing will come out, so, but I got to find that piece. Like, that's the highlight. I'm so glad I'm not you. Erika Kirk to the young Patsy. I'm so glad I'm not you. Yeah, I'm sure you are. You got $2.5 million of fucking martyr money in just in a $100 million company and all the shekels you can roll around in. And that guy's going to fucking fry in Utah. Yeah, I think we're glad we're not him, right? I think you can say 99.9% people are pretty glad they're not the fucking Patsy. I just got to listen to that one more time.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
Okay. Fucking platinum. All right. Okay, so I just went to eat dinner. I mean, it's 7 o'clock here. I wanted to start covering this stuff in the morning, but I'm too amped up about it. So I have my meme I'm going to get here in a second.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
But I'm glad he acknowledges that I'm a good boy. I am a good boy.
So I found this post. I searched for it. And this is chilling. Erika Kirk credits God for giving her peace. After the death of Charlie Kirk, encouraged people to forgive. The enemy would love for me to be angry. Jesus is the King of Kings. And I've talked about how being a king is a bad thing. So in the Bible, people thought of kings as being great. So that's the reference they use. But, king is not a good thing. God is not a king. And Jesus wasn't a king. He was a spiritual person. A spiritual person is above a king. A king has material power. A spiritual person submits and serves God. And so that's, if you're a spiritual person, you're more evolved and you're higher up than a king. The king has power over you and materially, but you're farther along your spiritual path. And so I'm pretty amped up about this. Let me show you the end part again here. You can get her actual reaction. Okay, so this is the end here.
Would pale in comparison of the justice of God.
See that looks that she gives. She's trying to be intense here. It's so fake. But this is the big one. This is the money shot here.
And so I would look at them almost like, I'm so glad I'm not you.
Like, look at the end. I'm so glad I'm not. Is there anything more bitchy than that? Is there anything less forgiving than saying to someone, I'm so glad I'm not you. You low-life piece of shit. I'm so glad I'm not you. I'm so glad I'm not you. I'm better than you, you piece of shit. Murderous piece of shit. Dressing up like a little furry and having sex with your transgender boyfriend. You and your fucking family who had nothing to do with this. And I'm so glad I'm not you. Even though I know that this is done by Israel and They're the one who killed Charlie Kirk, and they had me on board. You know, what I've always said, if you haven't seen some of my recent videos, if they're going to do a controlled operation, if they're going to do a false flag type, operation, some kind of, operation this isn't a false flag, but, in a way it is. But if they're going to do something deceptive, they got to get the wife, right? If they're going to murder Charlie Kirk, they got to get the wife. You can't, you have to get her, right? You have to. If you don't have her, then you don't know. She has the victim consciousness. She's the martyr's wife. She's the grieving widow. You don't get the grieving widow, you can't pull this off. You better make sure the grieving widow isn't going to ask questions. You better have her paid off before you do anything to Charlie Kirk. Whatever is real or not real, this is definitely, the official story isn't real, but the secondary story can't take place or can't be hidden away. The real story can't be hidden away unless you get this bitch in line, right? And they got her. She's been shackled up. My wife said, Candace Owens says they've made $70 million since the Charlie Kirk thing. She's got $2.5 million just in GoFundMe money to her. And she's inherited this multi-million-dollar business. She's running it. Of course, the business is tanking, which I'll show you in a moment, but they got a huge payday. And they got shackled up again, right? Because they're going to get a lot of shekels to keep their mouths shut, because all of them have suspicions, and they're all going along with this bogus official story. And so there's something at the beginning I want to show you here. So I was talking about this with my wife, and I had something else to say here.
I know you don't ever feel angry against God, but I kind of do.
I kind of do. Look at me. I kind of do. I do. I do.
I mean,
look at my man hands, and I kind of do.
How do you make sense of that? And do you have any anger when you think about it? Not towards the Lord, but in general?
The enemy would love for me to be angry.
This intense look that she gives. She's taking the, it's fake as fuck to us, but that's like evangelical language or whatever Christian denomination or people she's saying. Like that's their language. The rest are like, holy shit, what's she talking about? Everyone else thinks this is weird, but to her audience, they're going after a specific audience. They're certainly not going after liberals, and they're certainly not going after real truthers. They're going after right-wing Christians that buy into this bullshit, right? There's a lot of people who live in rural areas in the South, in the, country areas, and they're really polite, and they're really, they're sweet people, and externally, it's not sincere. And they expect everyone else to fake it. Like, they don't know how to express real emotion. They know how to be sincere and authentic. How many people that really are good at being authentic, who they are? It could be somebody horrible, but they don't care, right? Like, sometimes you'll have a friend who's a complete hedonist, completely immoral, completely just a degenerate. And, like, they're refreshing because they're not trying to hide who they are, even though who they are sucks, right? It's why people kind of gravitated to Trump. But how many people do you know, like out of if you think of, every 10 people how many of those people are actually authentic? I mean, everybody has to fake it at work or fake it at a funeral or, these types of things, right? And you're expected to give a certain performance. These people that I'm talking about, there's a movie called Vengeance. It's one of my favorite movies. I've watched it twice, once on my own and once with my wife. It's kind of a truther movie. This, guy, BJ Novak, made this movie, the guy from The Office. And he's a real pretentious liberal piece of shit who banged this girl from Texas a couple of times. And she ends up dying, and her family thinks that he's her boyfriend. And he goes down to Texas and he decides to make a podcast and sort of exploit the situation. And he's watching some videos of his dead, girl that he hooked up with. And she talks about how that when somebody says, bless her heart in Texas, it means fuck you, right? So, but you have these people who, when they hear this thing about the enemy, it resonates with them. It's their language. It's her, those are her. These, she's one of us. She's our people. But it's fake as fuck, right? Like, and those people oftentimes are fake as fuck, but they expect you to be fake as fuck. So I saw this movie called Becoming Guinea Fowl. And, my wife and I just had these guinea hens. And they are really good. They really warn people and other animals about predators. Like, they are very loud. And they, they're animals that are good, like, at being like watchdogs, right? The only problem is they go off a lot. Like, they're alarms that go off a lot. And we have 2 of them, and we're going to get more. We really love them. They're really interesting birds. There's a movie. It stars that guy from Mr. Robot. I don't know the name of the movie. It's a recent movie. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. But he's a CIA analyst whose wife gets killed, so he wants to go and be an operative. And there's a point in the movie where he's with this woman who's like an asset of his, and she has a bunch of guinea fowl because people are trying to kill her. And the guinea fowl act as like a warning signal for her, right? But in this movie, there is, and spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a little bit about the movie. This woman, the lead character, finds her dead uncle in the middle of the road in Zambia. And they have this 4-day fucking pretentious fake fucking funeral. And as the story develops, it's clear that this guy is a real piece of shit. Her uncle sexually abused her as a child, and then her 2 cousins. And their 2 cousins and her are expected to wait on everybody and to make the food and serve everybody. And, one of the older ladies going, "You're not even crying." Because they're all fake crying. They have to walk on their hands and knees in the house. And it's all performative. It's all performative grief. And this guy married a 15-year-old girl, and they had like 4 kids. And her family is trying to screw the girl out of his house and his car. And, the level of just, it's so icky and performative and fucking, and just wrong in every level, like insincere and genuine, and nobody's telling the truth. This guy was a pedophile, and he did damage to all these women, and they're going to leave this young girl homeless and without a car. She's a 20-year-old girl who was married at 15 years old and has 4 kids, and they're about to take her home away from her because they say she wasn't a good enough mother, a good enough wife to the guy. And, and the families are going back and forth. It's just so fucking icky. Like, I'm not recommending the movie, but it's interesting. But this is what I'm talking about. All this shit is performative. Like, she's not really grieving. And the stuff he's saying about the enemy and that stuff at the end, I mean, it's a totally bitchy thing to say, like the popular girl going, "I'm just so glad I'm not you." I mean, that's not forgiveness. What the fuck? You're just going to say you forgive a guy who's a patsy that isn't really the real killer, and you're not doing anything to find the real killers, and you're making bank on a dying business. And so, I mean, she's just a fucking nightmare. And there are people who buy into it, but it's a small group of people. And everybody else who sees through it, it's just hard to watch. So let me show you some other things here. So this is how the issue of Israel is dividing the right, and what Charlie Kirk would say, with Colvett and Neff. Blake Neff and Andrew Colvett, 2 of the guys that made me realize it's TPUS gay. We'll go to their channel because they have a similar video about this. It's only got 33,000 views. So it's like Ben Shapiro gets 265,000 from 2 weeks ago. So this is from 4 days ago. Let's watch a little bit of this and I'll go to their channel.
The conservative movement is, I don't know how to say it's breaking in 2 right now, but it's definitely going through some growing pains over the issue of Israel.
Okay, so it's not breaking in 2. You have money and you have the establishment, and so this dude is so weird looking. And then these 2 gay dudes, right? These gay lovers, TPUS gay. There's nothing funny to me than guys who are pretending to be right-wing Christian that are closeted gays or like very effeminate and seem, just whatever. It's just funny. I mean, it's like, undebatably funny. But the movement's going against Israel. You can hear it in the applause that Dave Smith got in that debate with Josh Hammer. Dave Smith has fans. Josh Hammer doesn't have any fans. And, Ben Shapiro's channel and his business is imploding. They can't pay their credit cards or whatever. Somebody said they're going broke, right? And so this isn't about one side, two different sides warring about Israel. There's the people with money and influence. There's the Israeli lobby. And then there's the people. And the people are clearly on the side of the people who are calling out the dysfunctional relationship with Israel. I mean, it's probably 80% to 20%. I mean, if you look at the views that Candace Owens is getting, and again, she's making this all about herself, right? I mean, that's, whatever. And like, there's things that she's doing that isn't cool and off-putting. But 2 million views to 8,000 views, right? Like these guys, their business is imploding. I'll show you that in a moment.
You guys have been watching it, so have I. We've been right in the middle of it, all of us. I have wondered to myself how Charlie would have navigated this, because if there's one group Charlie knew better than anyone, it was young people. And he saw the split on this issue of Israel.
Okay, so he was already navigating it, which he very well knows. She knows he was navigating it, that he was bailing on Israel, even though they gave him like $200 million, built him buildings, and made his career. He had to go where his fans were going, and he was moving away from Israel. That's why he had Dave Smith. I covered this on my last video. That's why he had David Smith, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson on his show. And against the wishes of his big donors who were all doing interventions. And he said he was going to cut ties with Israel in a chat, which these guys admitted to is real, that Candace Owens exposed. And so he was already made his decision. He it's not like he had a conscience and didn't want to be on the side of a group of people, a country that was committing a genocide. He knew all the people, his supporters, his fans were moving away from Israel. And these guys all know it too. So whatever they say here, they know what the real answer is, because I know it, right? And I don't know any of these motherfuckers. I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was 2 months ago. But I know what the answer is, because you can search Charlie saying these things on the internet, that he was getting bullied by people, his donors that were, his Israeli donors.
Amongst the young folks before most, since he was so in touch with them. And yet he has, as you guys know, Turning Point has got many Jewish donors who did not feel as the young group feels and wanted him and Turning Point to be much more supportive of Israel. And now that that's only gotten worse, in the past couple of months, like, it's such a tricky issue. And I have asked myself many times, I wonder how Charlie would be handling this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's an issue that Charlie thought about a lot, talked about a lot, and you're correct. He saw the sort of crack-ups that we're having today coming several years in advance, because he spoke to young people a lot. He read the emails they sent in. He could see the polls. He always would look at what the polls were saying about what sentiment was. And
on the other side, he was getting hundreds of $millions of shekels, and he liked them shekels. And Israel wasn't going to give him shekels to agree with these young people. So he was kind of at a crossroads, And unfortunately, things didn't work out for him.
He would talk about this in private too. So you mentioned donors and all of that. He would talk to our supporters who were Jewish or just generally big Israel supporters. And he would say, one thing you guys need to understand is young people are a lot less supportive of Israel. And he would try to chart.
So, and I talked about this with Dave Smith. Israel and the Israeli lobby, like so many things that are controlled and fake in our society, they can never allow the truth to come out. They can never just let things, this is what I talked about in my book, The Choice. The people I call the controllers, they can't let there be a debate. They can't let there be free speech on these subjects, because, their position is undefendable. Like they don't have anything but lies and manipulation and, disinformation. So, when Dave Smith was debating Josh Hammer had no chance, because Dave Smith's good at remembering the facts, or whatever you want to call them, the information. And Josh Hammer's good at trying to make insults and do distractions. But when you're getting bombarded by truths, your argument crumbles. And so, they're not interested in having any kind of, I mean, this is why they're trying to control these protests. Because if people genuinely looked at the parasitic relationship between Israel and America, Americans would be like, fuck that, right? You know, I'm not giving my taxpayers dollars to this, you know, bullshit relationship. There's no way it survives. And so they have to be full out control, you know, be a, you know, 100% backing our talking points. We didn't give you $100 million to, you know, make up your own, you know, to hedge your bets. You have to go all in. And so that's what they were saying to Charlie Shekels.
Out, I think, a viable future on that issue where he would say, guys, we have to be able to make the case that supporting Israel is an America First position. And if we can't do that, we may have to choose a more moderate path forward where it might be we don't give them as much financial support, but we might still give them moral support. We can still back them up in other ways, but that a big reason, a big thing driving a lot of the anti-Israel sentiment was when you have overt financial support going to such a degree to another country.
And also going to your fucking organization. You guys are 100% shekel, you know, fueled by shekels, right? You're shekel driven. And everybody knows it. Like these two clowns, these two closeted gay dudes, right? Let's see what the other guy has to say here. Well, let's let him.
And he was always trying to chart that out ways. We were discussing that even up to the point of his assassination.
It's crazy. Like he was getting ready to modify his position on Israel, and he caught a bullet in the neck. It's fucking crazy. I mean, like he didn't even get the chance to see this thing through.
What are arguments we could make towards people who are hostile to Israel, and also what can we make to supporters of it to try to hold the coalition together? Because what he...
Oh, but it's very hard, Blake.
Yeah,
trust me when I tell you.
It is very
It's impossible. It ain't being held together. It's fucking broken apart. And 80% are on one side, and 20% are on the shekels.
If you want to make space for both sides of that discussion, there is one side that will insist you not.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the sort of Tucker, more isolationist wing of the Republican Party that's been highly critical of Israel is now, according to the more polite people who are neocon-y, no longer allowed. You're not allowed to have that discussion. And it's one of the things, you know, I've been trying to make space for both sides.
It's what I told you earlier. They can't allow that discussion because if it comes out, there's only one outcome, and that's, you know, if you talk to the American people about a country that does zero for them, the average American benefits not at all from Israel. And they're giving so much of their money, their taxpayers, and just taxpayer dollars and all of it. You know, I mean, weapons and eventually troops on the ground and whatever it might be. For what? Like, you know, for what? And they've spied on us. They've, you know, probably assassinated presidents. Maybe did the big event in September 2001. You know, I mean, logically these things, or at least we're part of these things, right? They bombed the USS Liberty, torpedoed an American vessel. And you know, a vessel with no weapons that was just going to get an information vessel, and killed, you know, 45 American sailors or whatever it was. They've done all kinds, spied on us, taken nuclear secrets. And so when they hear all that shit, they're not, you know, let's see what this other guy says here.
Part of a focus group with Charlie at the Student Action Summit in July. You were there, Megan. And, you know, it was an interesting thing because we asked these kids, you know, what are your feelings about Israel? And these were kids from all over the country, different geographies, different types of schools, Stanford to, you know, state colleges and everything in between. And most of them were not antagonistic per se to Israel. They just wanted the freedom to be able to have opinions that, you know, were not orthodox American foreign policy, you know, for the last 60 years, right? So they wanted the freedom to be able to say and believe those things without being called an anti-Semite. And that was the space that Charlie was carving out. Basically,
he wasn't carving out shit. They sheckled him to close that shit down. They sheckled him to go into college campuses and gaslight college students who are also going to get pressure from Donald J. fucking Trump that was going to pull away, you know, funding to these countries, these universities, and, you know, suppress their freedom of speech. And so, you know, but again, this is where these guys are. They have no audience. They can't go all in and, you know, talk about the fact that Charlie's death, that there's a patsy and this stuff, and they can't go all in on Israel because they don't have an audience, and without any audience, they don't have influence, and without influence, they can't get shekels. And so this is a couple of fucked gay dudes, and a happy and this happy dude here. Okay, so this shows you how bad their channel is. What abolishing property taxes make America better or worse? 13,000 views. TPUS gay students discuss the most important issues facing young voters. I know they're not going to have people on there that are saying we don't believe that the Patsy did the murder of Charlie Kirk. 9,000 views. Gen Z students explain their feelings on Israel. 7.9 thousand views. And that's about it. Some more stuff about this. Uncovering what the FBI is hiding about Trump's assassination. I know that I saw this video. And all the comments were about, why are you talking about this when Charlie Kirk's, it's got 33,000 views, and all the comments are, why aren't you focusing on Charlie Kirk's, FBI withholding information on him and the bullshit story there. Calling these guys clueless and how bad their thing sucks. And so they have no channel. Erika Kirk's presiding over a failed business. She's, fake as fuck, unlikable, and, the rest of it. All right, so I'm going to tap out here, and I'm going to finish this video tomorrow. Okay, today is Monday, whatever day it is. Date it is. It is the 24th of November. I want to revisit the enemy from yesterday because I had some thoughts about it in meditation. Here it is.
I know you don't ever feel angry against God, but I kind of do. I mean,
I understand.
How do you make sense of that? And do you have any anger when you think about it? Not towards the Lord, but in general?
The enemy would love for me to be angry.
Her fakeness, and she's just the worst. It's just, but this idea about the enemy, right? So you don't want to have enemies. Like you don't want to have, as a spiritual person, you don't think of people as enemies. Because, like I said before, you get locked in these hate battles, right? And so, anything that you generate as a emotion or a feeling or, emotions being lower level, anger, jealousy, which is not really so much emotion, but kind of hatred, jealousy are sort of similar. They're emotion plus something else, right? They're also mental. These things represent some scars and things that are inside of you that you have no control over, right? Like people have to, control. You can control what you do with your anger, right? You can control like your actions. And if you get angry, you can control your actions. Like, you just don't go ballistic when you get angry, right? Whatever it is. But you can't control the emotion itself. You can't control some of your thoughts. Like this is one of the great things of the Sajmark meditation is you tame everything. Like you don't control them, but you tame them. Like your mind doesn't wander, into unpleasant places. And that's also to do with these things called samskaras. But like getting angry at God, like she's very controlled. And none of what she says is believable, but like the anger towards God is there because the anger is anger, right? And the anger itself is something that has to be, in the Sajmark system, when you would go to a gathering, you would have stuff come up that you didn't even know was there. And it was minimized. It was controlled by the method of the system, but it still would come up. Like every time I went to a gathering. The majority of times, especially in the beginning, I got sick, and I also felt emotionally a certain kind of way. And whether it was fear or anger, stuff would just come out spontaneously. Then I realized it didn't have anything to do with what was going on in the world. Like usually you watch something on TV or you interact with somebody at work and you feel anger, right? And sometimes other people have anger and it triggers the anger in you, right? So, that's a response, or it triggers fear or whatever. But like there are times in your life where you'll just sit there and you'll be angry and you don't even know why. You wake up in the morning and you feel anger, and then you just attribute it to something. You pin the anger to something, right? You pin the anger to a person or a situation. And that happens to me quite a bit now when I feel these kind of emotions where I don't really have anything to be fearful or angry about. I just, the emotion comes up, and then I just, more anger than fear, because it's just, like anger is something that is generated by people, but people have panic attacks for no reason, right? And so you have these emotional responses in your body, and there's spiritual things going on. And these gatherings I would go to in the Sajmarg meditation, would, or not just the gatherings, but just doing it. That would be a more intense example. Stuff would just come up. And it was coming up so it could be cleaned out, because there's a cleaning system, and it doesn't exist in these other forms of spirituality. The cleaning of samskaras and this, and it's unpleasant. Like, it's unpleasant. But the good thing about it is you feel better and different. When I was going through the divorce and the organization, people in the organization, the guy that charged the organization, Dodgy, this meditation organization, was crapping out. I didn't even understand that. The divorce thing was happening, and my family was in chaos. And this deep-seated resentment towards God came up, like I had it from a past life. Like I felt resentful for God. And I could trace it back to a specific past life, because I had knowledge of a past life I had in the Mahabharata, one of the people there, Karna. And then from that, like, there was knowledge of this character, because there's a famous person. And there was a past life before that as an Asuric king, which, was a very long life of, bad living. And so, when those things came up, and I realized I'd had this carried around a resentment towards God for, things that seemed unfair. And when it was gone, not only did I jump, like, levels spiritually, but I was happier, like I was a better person. Like, sustainable. Like, it was not a, like, oh, all right, I feel better now. Like, there was something, when you get cleaned out or something, there's always immediate reaction. Like, if you eat really poor, crappy foods and you're getting sick from your foods, I did this in college where I was partying and drinking and using drugs and eating fast foods. And my brother started doing microbiotic food, and I copied him because I just felt like shit. And, like, for 3 months, I felt great, because I wasn't putting poisons into my body. But after a while, that feeling goes away. It just becomes normal. Like when you go from an unhealthy diet to a healthy diet, or something like that, where you go from an unhealthy relationship to a healthy relationship, there's like an immediate contrast. And so the contrast becomes normal after a while. It's still good. It's just that it's not, you can't measure it by the shittiness that was there before. And so you have to kind of remember that. Like, well, you got to remember to be grateful for, how things were before. Like, you never forget, because you might not feel it anymore, but you never forget how bad it was before, right? So that you can, keep that memory of the contrast, even though it's not there presently. And so, but in the Sajmark system, there's a lightness that you have, and you just move forward with it. You're carrying around eternally some heavy spiritual stuff that was blocking your path, and when it gets removed, it's amazing. And so if you don't feel the anger towards God, then God can't remove it, right? Like, it's in there. Like, whatever, like whatever reaction she would be having to this thing, everything she does is performative. But when you think of the devil as the enemy, you're focused on him. And you're giving him way too much power, because the enemy is your ego. Your ego is a potential devil. It's not the devil, external devil. It's not, like she's saying, that's what the enemy would want. Well, it's ego. It's egoism. And she has a ton of it. Like, she is an egotistical person. If she wasn't egotistical, she would have grieved for a month or so and not said anything in public. But she did these like, she wants to be a beauty queen. She wants to be in music videos. She's one of those people. The ego wants to be seen. Wants to be a podcaster. Wants, whatever. There's an ego aspect of it. And, when you're really sad and you're devastated, you have to go through the grief process, and you have to, be like, whatever. Like, you have to deal with the loss of something like that. It's crippling, right? You have to, my mom and I didn't get along. And I've told this story before quite a bit. My mom, not that we didn't get along, but like, we weren't, she started doing the Sizemore system, and, but it was depressing for me to be around her and my dad. Especially, the way my mom and dad split up. And I was kind of thought that was a good thing for my mom, because my dad was a nightmare. But she got back together with him, and then, and I was like, why? Like, there's just even no reason for it. And she said she got married to him because she felt sorry for him. And I'm like, well, that fucked all of us, right? Like, that's not a reason, You don't get married to somebody with pity, it's not a pity, Like, why would you do that? Like, I felt sorry for him. I'm like, fuck, maybe this is a guy that shouldn't, have reproduced. But, like, she was a spiritual person. The incompetence that my parents had, whatever. Like, we weren't close. And when she died, I didn't feel anything. I was relieved when my dad left, because when I saw him, he was a walking corpse. And he was just fearful of death, and he was just clinging on to a physical body that was, like, hard to look at. He was just like he had always been kind of, when I was a kid, he had been kind of on the heavy side. He had a labanza, which he called his stomach, some kind of fucking Italian word. And anyways, my mom died, and I'm in India, and I don't feel anything. Like, I don't, I kind of a little bit, I don't know what to feel about it. And, these women were there, these Haitian women that knew my mom, because they were in Florida, and they were just happened to be in India when this, was kind of wasn't an accident. And then there was this, I was talking to my ex, and I was just, like, feelings were coming up about my mom. Like, something was there. And I was talking to my ex, and I was, like, I was just kind of talking about my, my whatever feelings that were like, this is like, I was like, I've started, I don't know. Like, there was something there that I didn't know. Like, it wasn't on the surface. It was just buried. And this crazy woman came up and just interrupted me in full sentence, in the middle of a sentence. And I was pissed at my ex, but we're already in a divorce process. Like, it's, it was inevitable. And, and I knew that she was a fucking nightmare. And she has, some similarities to Erika Kirk, very performative, just a poser, right? Which, I detest. This woman comes interrupting, and, what my ex should have done was like, look, we're in the middle of something. But, like, because we're having, like, I'm going through a real thing, like a real, feelings about my mom dying are coming up. And this woman just starts blathering on, like this crazy Indian woman who's like, she's from England, and she's like, like this kind of, just one of these crazy people that's oblivious to everybody else. And I go, you out of your fucking mind, right? Like, he was just, and swearing like that in this culture, this woman's kind of an educated, refined, crazy woman, And, like, I'm like, you out of your fucking mind, And I say, my mom just died, and I'm in the middle of the sentence. You walk up here like, fuck it, and I just unload on her. Like, the out of your fucking mind was enough, but I went on for about 2 minutes about what a fucking, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. She's like in tears and like fucking walks away. And like my voice is like quivering, like I'm crying, like there's like crying on the inside. And so you can't control these things, right? They're there inside of you. But you have an ego that's a potential demon, and that's what you're battling. You're not battling some external devil. You're battling your egotistical nature and your ego that wants to go in a non-godly way and wants to do whatever the fuck it wants. And, so this enemy thing and the way she looks at it, right? That the enemy your ego will totally latch on to stuff that's going inside of you that is unresolved, right? Like the buried anger that you have for God that you want to express. And, I don't think her marriage is real, but it's weird language, right? This idea that the devil and the God are outside of you battling it out for your soul and you have no control over it. It's a horrible way to go through life. I got some great comments, too, to get to about this because,
So you did get married.
Yes.
You have 2 kids.
2 precious babies.
2 precious babies. They're so precious. 2 precious babies. Like this whole fake fucking thing. And, it should drive this dude nuts. This dude's hard as a fucking rock. And, that's not like a heart, like whatever, feelings, emotional person. And her with her bullshit stuff. 2 precious babies.
And you told me this in private, but how many kids did you guys want to have?
We wanted to have 4. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not, there's 2 kids that we're not going to have. If you do the math, we have 2, and there's 2 more we are going to have. And yeah, we're not going to.
And I was praying to God that I was pregnant when he got murdered.
Oh, wow.
And then God fucked me, and I'm not angry at him at all, but my God, I was just praying that I was pregnant. And, I was hoping it was even Charlie's. I was hoping it was Charlie's and it was pregnant.
I thought of that once.
Oh, look, just stab that fucking eye. Like this grief thing, how long is she going to do this, right? We're 2 months in. Like, you should stop wearing black, like it's over. And then why lace things like this? Like, it looks like some kind of, lingerie type of deal. Like, something where it's like fishnetty. You can see through her, whatever lace things. That's not, like, if you're going to grieve, it should be like a black frock, some kind of, baggy black slacks, some kind of like what nuns would wear, like these things, like just like a black, like a black bathrobe, like it just should be like, not trying to be like, model-esque and like you're dressed up, like it's something you wear into like a fucking, a party or something like a big event, like shouldn't be something that's dressy, and like this kind of thing, like that's just, and I'm not a clothes person. I don't give a shit what you wear, right? Like I don't care, but like, Megyn Kelly choosing white and usually Erika Kirk wears white and black. But, like, she goes on these grief fests, right? This is performative. Like, she puts on her professional grieving martyr widow, and it's just fucking obscene. It's gross. It was gross the first day when it was all fake, and she came out and gave a speech. Like, you shouldn't have to give a speech when your husband dies, and you shouldn't want to. The 2 days after your husband dies, you shouldn't film you getting his casket. You shouldn't film the interaction with his dead body. Like when she did all that weird shit, like, I'll revisit that someday, but not today. I mean, she's like, I've gone through, I think, one video where she go through her whole talk. But other than that, I can't make it through. Like, I was hoping that the whole interview was here, but they want to, these are little teasers, so you get Sirius Radio. And because you've got to deal with them, and, so these are little teasers so that you get the whole interview. And oh my God, it's only a minute long. These 2 clips, they're less than 2 minutes long. It's a minute, 23 seconds, and you can barely get through them. Like every fake thing that she does, and she's got to fucking Megyn Kelly's got her merch up here.
Just like whether it was meant to be or whether we'd get news like that.
I was like, oh goodness, that would be the ultimate blessing out of this catastrophe. So now when I see young couples.
Dab in the corner of her eyes and just fucking, her signature move, everything about it. It's just so bad.
tell them, please, like, don't put it off.
This is what I was talking about, Candace Owens, making it about herself and now that her life's under threat. Like, she's competing with Erika for attention. Like, she can say she's not naming Erika or going after Erika, but, like, it's a competition. It seems like she was, there's a few videos she played where it was her and Charlie Kirk. I'll go back and play that after this. And they were interacting. And there's another video where they're dancing. And, and I mean, I don't know what their relationship was and whether, Candace Owens, like, was in love with them or something, or, there's something there. But she acts like a little girl, like she's, and so, I mean, and they have a more real relationship, and her grieving seems more real. But now it's about who has the attention. Like, Erika Kirk can't drive up the numbers like Candace Owens, because people want fucking resolution to this bullshit story with the Patsy. And, I'm just glad I'm not you, fucking bullshit. And so, but it's become a competition, like this whole thing, like who's more relevant, who's, got a bigger audience.
Especially if you're a young woman, don't put it off. You can always have a career. You can always, go back to work. You can never just go back to having children. And they grow so fast and so quickly, but I was praying, both of us were. We were really excited to just expand our family.
Thank God you have the two.
I know.
Thank God.
Yeah, fuck those two. I wanted two more. I figured the two that were coming were better. These guys, fuck those guys.
Boy and girl. I know.
One day they'll
boy and girl. Like, why? Who says like when my viewer pointed out when she said, I love it when she's talking to dead Charlie in heaven on Instagram, and she said, I just remember you being in dad mode. Like, no one talks like that with their spouse. Oh, you're in dad mode. He's in dad. Like, that's fucking, people who are, like, disconnected and just, they talk in bumper stickers. They just, there are a lot of people, doing line. It's like, emotional line dancing where you just, you're not expressing yourself and what's coming from you, I know, with their boy and girl. Well, why fucking boy and girl? Who gives a shit to boy and girl? I know. Like, listen to this fucking bitch, right? At least you have the two.
You have the two.
I know.
Thank God.
Boy and girl. I know.
Boy and girl. Like, it's still, I got one of each. Yeah, I got two, one of each, a boy and a girl. Like, what the fuck you're talking about? It could be a boy and a girl and a girl, and, like, that wouldn't be as good. So, like, I got one of each. I want to point that out, because when you got a Patsy in jail, and, you're glad you're not them, and you got a fucking dead husband, and you've inherited a corporation, and, you're dabbing your eyes with fucking Kleenexes and then fake crying. You want to have a fake boy and girl. Like, when you have two fake kids that aren't yours and your marriage that didn't exist, you want to have a boy and girl.
One day they'll find out. Right now they're just, little loves. And one day they'll find out that they're Charlie Kirk's children, and they'll know what that means.
Yeah, just shackled up he is. They'll know what that means. No, they won't. Like, this thing's dead. Like, Charlie Kirk was a shackled up piece of shit. And, the whatever he had with these college kids, whatever his legacy is, people aren't watching his videos. They're posting videos of him. Let's go to the Candace thing, and then we'll go back to TPUSK. Erika Kirk is posting her own stuff, right? Like her own Instagram things, and some weird pictures of Charlie and with the kids, and whatever. And Candace Owens is, going through text messages, like and these video clips.
This is the question that came in for Charlie, and this is how Charlie chose to answer that question. Take a listen.
Okay, who is, I already know this. You kind of already touched on this. Your all-time favorite historical figure, is it Milton Friedman, or is there someone else? Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I would say, I gotta always say Jesus Christ, probably.
I gotta say Jesus Christ, but that's not the real one. That's what's real. But then they're probably Jesus Christ. I don't know, maybe Jesus, but maybe somebody else.
Wow, that is a great question. Historical figure. So, just for like to make it fun, let's just say before 1850.
Okay, he's
Just
amending your question.
yes, whoever this is. Susie from Buffalo. I'm so sorry. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing,
Stunning.
right?
You know, but she's sort of bubbly. Now she's younger, and she's like a little bit like less, you know. But she's she's like, you know, there's like she's just a real. She's got whatever feelings for him. Maybe maybe they're just really good friends, or like sister and brotherly, or maybe she's interested in him, you know, romantically, and he's not into it, but because he's gay. I don't know, you know, but either way, like her feelings are different, you know, like the way she's reacting with them.
The Mensa. I mean, I'm kidding. So I love the American founding fathers. Ben Franklin, I always really enjoyed.
He's a real perv.
You know, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson I think are too cliche. So one I really enjoy that I just love learning from is Julius Caesar.
I'm going to get to the president's wives. He just loves Julius Caesar.
I think he's one of the most interesting historical figures. If you want to talk about someone who lived a full life,
right,
it's Julius Caesar. From conquering northern Germania to surviving and winning a Roman civil war,
right,
to an unusual alliance and quelling a rebellion with Cleopatra, to eventually
just an amazing he's just a fucking great guy. He just checked all the boxes.
Becoming to ending the Roman Republic, to starting the Roman Empire, and then seeing the people that he benefited the most turn against him.
Right.
I think there's something very tragic and very interesting about that. So I think it's one of the most interesting, and you could learn, if there's something to learn about humanity, you could learn it through the prism of Julius Caesar.
Okay, so she's going to get into how they all betrayed him, and then.
Man, that sure is something to hear him say that. The people who benefited the most turned against him. Gaius Julius Caesar, that is correct, a general who had rightfully earned the respect of the people for leading them through the Gallic wars, a statesman, and finally a leader who in the end was betrayed and famously assassinated by the very people that he helped to build up. A conspiracy, a plot to murder him, which included a lot of people, politicians, of course, the senators, military men, close friends and confidants, the most infamous, of course, being Brutus.
Brutus and Judas and Brutus and Judas.
Some reports say that he viewed Brutus as a son. That's how close they were. Of course, that didn't stop Brutus from plunging the knife into him. 23 times Julius Caesar was stabbed by senators. And, of course, Brutus, leading to the famed Shakespearean expression, and et tu, Brute. Et tu. You as well, you too. Wow, you have turned against me as well. Now, why was Caesar assassinated? Because, I don't know, he was too good, too adored, too respected by the people, thereby a threat somehow.
Took too many shekels and betrayed the shekel givers, you know.
To the establishment of politics. It doesn't like to see somebody come through the ranks and achieve what they perceive to be power that they can't control. Yeah, the Bible is very clear that there is nothing new under the sun, and it appears that history is present again. Judas, Brutus, in the future, when we are long gone from this world, who do you guys think is going to be the person remembered most for this act?
No one's going to remember shit about this. Charlie Kirk is a nothing. He's like in a time where there's like real shit happening, a collapse of a civilization. Charlie Kirk's already done. You know, there's the people in the right wing that are fighting over Israel and the debate that's going on, right? This thing that's happening, and then there's the rest of these things, these events that are unfolding, and World War III is coming, and an economic collapse. But there's big news every week. And so majority of people have moved on for Charlie Kirk. She's getting 2 million views of people who are still interested. And then there's people who are making videos, about this thing, smaller channels like mine and other people. And then there's it's a big story just because it's about the Israeli parasitic relationship with America, but that's going to run its course. It's going to be censored out or whatever's going to happen. Other things are going to come up. Trump, of course. And, Charlie Kirk is a forgotten man already. And he should be, because he's a piece of shit that took a lot of shekels to work with the devil. Like, I mean, not just, the devil inside the ego, but the negative forces that are, and again, I mean, there's provisions in the divine system for a wayward society like ours, and the divine beings that are, always working for the divine, the divine cause, the divine plan. This system has to come down, and so anybody who's a part of it, whether it's Charlie Kirk or Trump or Putin or Netanyahu, whatever it is, they play their role, right, to end a system that's taken everyone away from God. Which is, I mean, unthinkable for us, but if we were like objective about it, it's like, yeah, of course that has to happen. But this is the thing she says here.
Betrayal against Charlie. Not me, that's for sure. It's not going to be Candace Owens, okay? No one's going.
Again, it's making it about. This is what I was like. Oh wow, she's taking over the story, right? Erika Kirk is just a one-trick pony. She's a dab of your eyes, fake fucking grieving, dropping stuff like the enemy, pretending to be like a godly woman, and going on her grief fest. She has celebrities. She goes to get an award from Trump and get interviewed by Megyn Kelly, and and run this company now, a company that no one gives a shit about, a YouTube channel that's fading fast. She got a big chunk of grieving money, and she got $2.5 million for personal money just from all these people who are living hand to mouth, but giving money to this rich woman because they buy into her bullshit. And they got $70 million in donations. Many of that, most of that being from shekel people who want to suppress any story that ties Charlie Kirk's death to Israel. And then after that, like, she's done. Like, she's annoying. People don't like her. But again, talking to these evangelical people or whoever, whatever they categorize these Christians, when she talks about the enemy and she used these code words, you're just trying to carve out a small audience. I mean, for her, small, it's some millions. She's hoping to, have an audience. Like, that's what everyone's trying to do here. Like, carve out. You don't need a big audience because there's 350 million Americans, and then it's a global situation. You get people from other countries. Like, I have a very, small potential audience. Like, there's only about global situation. You get people from other countries. Like, I have a very, small potential audience. Like, there's only about, maybe 10 million people. I don't know what it is that are, that, again, there's people who are not into the spiritual stuff. And so but they like the, my personality, whatever it is. But it's a small, let's say 20 million potential people that would like this show, right? Out of 350, this is a small percentage. But, I mean, it's right now it's about, 5,000 people a day watching these videos. Some people come and some people go, but, whatever. So maybe 10,000 total, and that's more than enough for me to keep going. Of course, it should be more, but, that's kind of bare minimum. And then it was below that for a while. My video viewed was down for 2,000 people, right? So, but, this is what we're talking about. And so, like, Erika Kirk doesn't need to appeal to liberals. Candace Owens doesn't need to appeal to Zionists and also haters. And I don't, it's not something for me, but these people have bigger audiences. They want haters. Haters drive, provide the energy. Haters come in and, they help to galvanize your fan base and all these things, right? People defend you, whatever it is. Like they, feel some sorts of ownership and protector, whatever. And haters and having haters talk about you helps promote your stuff, right? That's why there's these fake, rap battles where there's these people who are pretending to have a beef, rap beef and whatever. But they're not, and in Hollywood and other places. They want to drive the attention. The conflict is something that people tune in for. So, there's that element. But, Erika Kirk is trying to carve out some small piece of Charlie Kirk's greater audience. But he really didn't have an audience, right? Like, if he did, like, people didn't feel the way that they're trying to pretend Charlie Kirk was, because he was a shekel patient. He was it was a fake. It's a contrived, shekel generated popularity. You give somebody $100 million, and then you say, go out here and, create a movement. Yeah, that's pretty easy. He goes to these college campuses and, gets into a few like little conflict things with some liberals and, some liberal college kids. And he some of the ones he does well, and they promote those. He gets them, and they put those out in video places and, platforms, video places. And they have, a bunch of right-wing people are mad at liberal college kids. And, they look at these anti-Israeli. They're told that this, being anti-Israeli is being a liberal. And, they push this movement. And he's being shackled up to do it. It's not like people didn't like him. He's not really that likable. He wasn't, you could see people weren't loving him, right? They were people who were right-wing people that were looking for a common ground, a place to be, people like them, finding people like them. And he was able to do it because he was shackled up. And when you have a lot of resources, you don't need to generate money from your content. You're being paid money to create content, right? So that's a totally different thing. And you're given a lot of money where you can go and have a platform, you can be, pushed out there. And, there's energy behind it, like not just money, but also media, like Fox News and people like that, and other people in that, in the space, the Megyn Kellys and the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens and these other people. She came up with him, but like this is this was what that made them into what they are. But now, whatever people that were part of this thing, TPUSK and Charlie Kirk, they, Erika Kirk isn't less likable, she wasn't really that likable. And so, but she's much worse. She just doesn't have it. She doesn't know these guys who have taken over the show are horrible. These closeted gay guys or these effeminate dudes. They're supposed to be right-wing Republican tough guys. And they're not talking about the one thing they want to hear about, which is that the official story is bullshit. And they're running away from that. And they're running away from Charlie's last movement, which was away from Israel because they need the shekels. And so they're fucked. And so, they have nothing. All right, let's go to a few more things to get to here. Okay, so I don't know how these sponsorship ads work. We're going to get into this. Gen Z students explain their feelings on Israel. Just briefly. I'm not going to spend much time on this. But I would assume it's here. Let's watch.
Healthcare, people are really frustrated with how much it costs and how to pay for it. That's why MediShare is such a welcome relief. It's
Boom, MediShare.
Healthcare sharing.
Look at it. Look at them share together. Look at this Christian family. Look at this fucking big-ass Christian family looking up at this God and fucking having MediShare. It tells insurers.
More than 1 million Americans.
Look at that fucking Christian little mom and Christian girl jumping up and down all happy. And they're happy to have MediShare.
Are already doing this, and you could save thousands of dollars a year on your healthcare and be happy.
So it says find out more at medishare.com/Kirk. Now, I don't know how these things work, but I'm assuming there's some sort of if they use the code Kirk and they get a little, money off, or if there's, if they watch the ad, like in YouTube, if this person watches the ad, you get an infinitesimal amount of money. One person watching one ad, you need lots of people watching the ads, right? So, and if somebody buys something, then there's, there's sometimes there's more. But I'm not a businessman, right? I'm not good at the business side of things, but they only have 8,000 views on this video, and so if they're lucky to make $100 on this thing. I'm sure it's not really worth it for MediShare to have only 8,000 views, right? It's the beginning of the video, so, whatever. But they're not making money. Like they have a fucking, they got the big shekels, they got the big Charlie Kirk death payoff, and now moving forward as an organization, they're not going out and we'll get to that with this video, but they're not going out and just propagating Israeli lies. Plus the thing that happened with Israel needs America back in Iran at some point. Like that shit ain't over, and so they still need the propaganda. But where they get it, they're paying people, they're paying creators to push their agenda, which is completely fucked, But that's falling on deaf ears. And this, they have no influence. The turning point, TPUS gay has no influence, right? They've lost their audience.
Imagine that. So find out more at metashare.com/Kirk. That's metashare.com/Kirk, or just text the word KIRK, Kirk, to 70246.
Kirk, just text to Kirk. Kirk
to 70246. If you just had to gauge with amongst
gauge
your peers, 50%, 60%, how many of your peers, let's say conservatives, and then maybe include liberals there, how many are supportive of the U.S.-Israel relationship?
Gosh, on campus it is slim, both left and right wing. I'm honestly having trouble meeting people, conservative or liberal, that currently support the Israeli regime or their.
So this fucks them. They've lost. Like Charlie Kirk's going in there and propagandizing this genocide. You've lost the youth. And like I've said so many times before, whatever issue you wake up to, when you realize the government's fucked, you realize the system's rigged. Some people it's 9/11, some people it's Pizzagate, some people it's COVID, right? Some people it's the economic collapse. These big issues. And for these kids, it's Israel. These college kids, there's a generation of college kids who are, kind of fucked. Like even with a college degree, their prospects, especially these young men who are getting fucking buried by the agenda, right? All these things. I'm going to get into this. There were so many comments about Michelle Obama saying to white people that black people had curly hair. And I got comments from black people. I got comments from white people. Lots of comments, and I'm going to read some of them. And I had something else to say about that. But, this, you can only propagandize issues, which I want to talk about at the end of this video, for so long. You can only get away with creating false stuff. There's a shelf life to people's anger. There's a shelf life to people's demonization of whatever it is, right? And so you have to feed it. You constantly have to feed these narratives. And once it goes south, it goes south. And so these kids who have a very dim future and they view the Israeli-American relationship as parasitic, and you have this TPUS gay without Israel's backing, it's nothing. And they're losing their audience because they're going with the official story. So they're losing all truthers, and they're losing all the people who are pro-Israel. And they don't want to come in here and talk about Charlie Kirk's attitude because they won't get dick for money. In fact, they'll make an enemy of the Israeli donors who have built this fucking TPUS gay. And they can come and start outing people. I mean, if it ends up being a war between TPUS gay and the Israeli lobby, which is very vindictive, right? Which just ask Charlie Kirk. And so they're in a really bad position here, right? Because they're not going to pay you to talk to a bunch of college kids you can't win over, right?
Invasion of Palestine. It is very hard to find people supportive right now.
Okay. Yeah, we won't quibble on the use of the word invasion, but it's certainly different people would frame it differently, right?
Yeah. No, your shekel givers would say, they're just defending themselves, but most people in the college campus would say this is a genocide. It's a fucking genocide, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. And you lose a generation of college kids. You lose a generation, not just college kids, young people. And you lose them on the left and the right, and they're united on this issue, then at some point in the future, and again, America will probably be no longer America by then, But as they get into their 30s and they're they're the most valuable demographic, and you can't win them back. I mean, Israel's fucked. Whether this is intentional or not is debatable, but they're in a bad position.
What about you, Dino?
I mean, I agree. It's slim to none. Look, I'm not a big fan of everything that's going on with Israel. Like I said on the Charlie Kirk, the big roundtable that we did a couple months ago, like I find it insulting when we send money to all these foreign countries when we've got such huge issues in our country, be it the fact
All right, so this is their, whatever it is. Let's go to the comments here. So like I said, this has just under 9,000 views. Andrew, the things you're not saying are shown through your eyes. It's not good. Every day and every breath is an opportunity to make better choices. Justice is the same without Charlie. Don't mistake us for fools. I'm Generation X and I've seen a bit more than Gen Z. Donate to TPUSK after Charlie's murder. Now seeing these clowns, I want my money back. So this is their fucking comment section, right? This is like every fucking video, they're getting fucking hammered. They only get 9,000 views. And of those 9,000 views, there doesn't seem to be anybody who likes what they're saying. This was Charlie's channel. Find your own. Repeat his programs here. You are all misrepresenting Charlie's. Please stop using his channel. Stop deceiving a generation and stealing. Free American tax dollars. I would assume that these guys were kind of trying to, convince these. I mean, these guys all put the gay and TPUS gay, all of them, right? They're very, effeminate and whatever it is, right? It's weird, like how this Republicans, who are supposed to be like these manly men and against gay rights and all these things, end up being, like they all seem like they're gay, right? Or at least they're effeminate. They're not like these, whatever. Charlie Kirk never lost a debate and didn't sit well with people who saw him as a threat. Fly, Charlie, we miss you, brother. Well, he lost plenty of debates. I mean, TPS US gay is crumbling. This channel should not have content until we know the truth. Show some respect. Andrew, Charlie is watching you, bud. This is now a Hasbara channel, TPJ USA. I miss Charlie. They're destroying what this channel was and stood for. Nothing here is worth time anymore. So again, they're getting no views. Like they're getting, slightly more views than me, probably on average. They put out 3 videos a day when they put them out, so it's, whatever. But that's, like this is a 450 employee organization. Israel isn't going to pay for this kind of shit, right? This isn't effective for them. And they're certainly not going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. They're gonna buy the silence. They've bought the silence. They got all these people. I mean, they're all complicit in this, starting with Erika, Monica J. Kirk. Show me you don't want to be assassinated without telling me you don't want to be assassinated. This is weird considering Charlie's views on it right before he passed. This channel's not Charlie Kirk anymore. They need to make their own channels and legacy. This is what I said. When you take somebody else's channel and, you come in, like this happened at Heartfulness. The 3 masters of the Heartfulness system, starting with the first one, he had about 200 followers. 200, not followers, people who do the meditation, what Babaji called associates, right? People who were, working together for their spiritual well-being and benefit. And Babaji died with the second master with 5,000 to 10,000 people. And Charji brought in about 100,000 people globally, 200,000, it's hard to say, right? And they all had credibility, like people loved them. They did service for God and they worked for these people. They helped transform these people's lives. I'm one of them. And they built up equity with their people. And this fucking dope, dumb shit, Kamlesh Patel came in, and he was good in the beginning and before he became master, but he just shit the bed when he became master. And, I looked at his content and their videos. I mean, they had the worst YouTube channel. The guy running it is a complete moron. I know this guy. I've had some fucking hilarious interactions with him because he's so fucking stupid. And he posts shit on Facebook. He's got his own, he wants to be, as he put it, a monk driving a Lamborghini. He's a business guy. And I don't know why he's made money. He shouldn't have. He's somehow just lucked into it because he's a fucking dumbass. And he's put out these videos of a guy who's a business guy but also spiritual. And he was putting out this video about, how women should succeed in business. And he's like, don't talk back to men and And, and I mean, just all these things that were totally sexist. I can't remember it all, but the guy, he was in charge of the Heartfulness YouTube channel. And so I used to talk about how, some of us had to win an audience. I mean, most of the people on the internet, you have to win an audience. You have to make videos and the algorithms play a part in it. But you have to make content that people come back for. And you have to, in this crazy world of people and so many different channels and so many different perspectives, you have to be appealing in some way where people want to watch you, right? And there's people who have organically won an audience, but Charlie Kirk wasn't one of them because he was funded. And these celebrities that come on and become truthers, like Roseanne for a little bit, or these other people, and just in terms of the truth community. But in general, you have to win an audience. And these guys who come in and they are, always going to be compared to Charlie Kirk, and they're, not able to say and speak in a way that's organic or authentic. And Erika Kirk's a complete disaster, a nightmare. And so Charlie was TPUS gay. Let that settle in. This just sucks. Charlie wasn't taken from us. I didn't read these before. I know every time I go to this comment section, especially with the title about Israel, I knew people were going to come here and hammer the shit out of these fucking dudes. Charlie wasn't taken from us. He was divided and laid upon each and every one of us. That is why we are Charlie Kirk. Well, that's just so fucking great, bro. Man, you don't deserve Kirk's spot. Saying Charlie Kirk is special because during his lifetime here on earth, he stood firmly and courageously and honestly, integrity, compassion, gumption, brilliance. He was a bright beacon and mentor for others to follow suit. He was a truth seeker that couldn't be bought. He was totally bought. He was a shackled up motherfucker. He's a piece of shit. But again, because the only price he cared about was the ultimate one he paid by Jesus Christ for his salvation. He's a rare gem, uniquely shaped by God. Okay, you get the idea. But he was, he's Charlie Shekels. These people are evil. How do you get in front of a camera and pretend that you are on God's side when you literally told Candace it was supposed to be her? Meaning you are an accomplice. I'm praying for your eternal soul. America first. None of you address the real issue, putting America first, not having our foreign policy dictated by other country, not sending billions to other countries, not directly supporting genocide on a civilian population, not having a foreign-controlled government, Congress, or presidency. These are the issues Americans have top of mind right now. Okay, so every time somebody blames the algorithm for something, it means that they don't like the reality of what people are actually interested in. P.S. Nobody's interested in this drivel. Hey, it is the algorithm. If they're blaming the algorithm, they got 9,000 views, and it seems like every one of these views, nothing on this show is worth watching anymore. They've lost their audience. You've lost your audience, and you're not going to win it back. Unless you hire Candace Owens to run her fucking show on your show, and then you're not going to get any of the money. And God knows what Israel will do to. I mean, it's got information on all these people. They've bought and sold these people, right? I mean, they got $70 million in martyr money for Charlie Kirk. That's a fucking shit ton of money, and they got couple $100 million before that. And so, they're there to try to do damage control for Israel, and there's no doing damage control because no one listens to them, and they're just every time they open their mouth and they shill for the remaining shekels that are available to them. I mean, they're completely fucked. This thing is, like I said before, if this is a battle between Candace Owens and Erika Kirk and TPUSK, Candace Owens is going to walk away with it because she's got content that people are interested in, and now that she's made it about her, that it becomes it's a clear competition, right? It only had 8,000 views. Every comment is negative. And, these guys are reading the comment section, and they're not addressing it. You could go through the comment section and read it out loud because they're just pretending like it doesn't exist. Everybody watching is like, you guys suck. Fuck you. You're betraying Charlie's memory. God's watching you, you piece of shit. These kind of things. And it only got 8.2 thousand views. I mean, they're getting nothing. And I don't even know. It's if all the views are haters, I mean, even Charlie Kirk takes on a California Libs at UCR. It's only 56,000 views. So he doesn't have a real audience. People aren't tuning in for millions of views. I mean, some of these things, 6,000 views, 6,000 views, 7,000 views. I mean, they're getting nothing. They're a huge organization. And so, it's completely fucked. And who is funding the Antifa attacks on TPUSA events? 14,000 views. No one gives a shit. This guy fucking Mikey with McCoy. Like, he's like, they've been red flagged. They're all watching Candace and coming over here and fucking hammering the shit out of these guys. And they don't know what to do to fucking, they're obviously, any channel would have to address this. Like, if you want to have a future, you would have to say, we hear you, right? I showed you that Dallas Mavericks owner, after they traded Luka Doncic, which is, I think, completely rigged and fixed and all those things. And they finally have some fans over there, the Dallas Mavericks, because they fired Nico Harris because he was the guy who traded him. And he was sitting there, the owner was talking to some fan. They said, we realized we fucked up and we're going to make it right. And then they had to do a public statement. When you lose your fan base, you got to fucking win them back, right? You lose the mob. And so, this is clearly what they have to do. They have to come in and just do this. They have to fucking, take accountability and say, we hear you guys. We know we've lost you guys. And they're just pretending like people fucking like their shit, It's like if this was an audience and these guys were doing this in front of an audience and people are like, fuck you, shut up, you're not Charlie, and then yelling fucking shit like that, heckling them. Like, take these comments as heckles. I mean, they're reading the comments. Erika J. Kirk's reading the comments, right? And so, I mean, she's just disappeared. She isn't even on here. Like, they don't even bring her on. She's the star of their show. Like, dead Charlie Kirk. Here he is, only 14,000 views. Only 11,000 views for Charlie, right? So even his videos, 13,000 views. Like, they're posting videos of him, and they fucking, and they have videos of things that he's done. He's done. Like, there's some people still like him, but everyone kind of realizes he had to turn. He was a completely shackled piece of shit, and then he had to about face. So this is amazing how much this has crumbled. Okay, so somebody posted this on Reddit. My wife sent it to me, and I was one of the first people. Well, so the reason my channel got big is I made a video called 95% chance that Michelle Obama is a dude with Serena Williams and Jennifer Aniston. And, it was, that was me. Like, some right-wing redneck people made a video about this. And I watched it as a goof because I thought it was silly. But when I watched it, they had some legitimate science and some legitimate ideas that she could be a dude, right? And I don't know if it's true or not, but I did make a follow-up video called that, why are all these A-list celebrities putting on dresses? And because remember, Dave Chappelle said that they made all the black actors wear a dress. Like and you see it, with athletes and they go on Saturday Night Live. And remember, not Chris Rock, he did it. Like he also, they got him. But Kevin Hart said he'd never do it. And then they got him on Saturday Night Live. And I was looking into that, and I found out that every A-list white celebrity male also had to put on a dress. And people like George Clooney, Brad Pitt, all these guys, like all those guys, Matt Damon, all these people. They get them all, right? They all get effeminized. And so it was like a rite of passage. There's a lot of Freemasonic shit in there. And then one day I looked at Martha fucking Washington, and I went, like, that looks like a fucking dude. She looks a little bit like my dad, right? She's got the similar bone structure. And I'm like, that looks like, and it's not just these pictures, the pictures of her young. And these are supposed to be complimentary. Like, if you saw a photograph, it would be way worse than this. They're feminizing her. And so my wife sent me this. There's a lot of these first ladies. Look at that fucking possible dude. That looks kind of like, again, these aren't pictures, these are paintings. So they didn't make them look like men, right? They minimized the man part. I don't know who these are. They're not labeled. These are all first ladies. Look at that fella right there. And they might not be dudes, but they're fucking. You got these presidents, and they're marrying women who look like men, right? I mean, they're just. Look at that motherfucker. Oh my God, I don't know about that one, but crazy. Again, and these look at that guy. Hey fella, look at. So these are all first ladies, and is that Jimmy Carter's wife? There's is that Truman or Eisenhower? One of those two. And this one is that Barbara Bush. No, that's the other Bush. The the one that this I'll play that meme at the end. Yeah, she doesn't look so. I never thought her as being dudeish. And of course, Michelle Obama. And that dude, she sued. Trump sued one of the right wing, one of the right wing truthers, one of like the old school guys who's a reporter, for saying that she was a transgender male. Like Trump, she sued them. I sued the person, and I mean, I can't say for sure with her, but there's, I mean, it's a possibility for all these people. At the very least, how many women do you say that could be a dude? Like when you're walking down the street and you see women, how many of them, just like with TPUS gay, how many men do you meet? You're like, that guy might be gay. 1 out of 10, it's 10%. Gay people are 10% of the population. Transgender people are far less than that. They're a percentage of 10%, right? And so women who look like men, it's a very small percentage. And, I mean, and you might have some manly qualities, big biceps, they might work out, broad shoulders, a few things. But overall, you still know they're women. And you've got all these first ladies, and they're all, these are rich and powerful men, and the women that they marry look like, dudes. It's pretty fucked, right? So, I have a meme. I still hope I have it. It's one of the Bush girls, and the meme speaks for itself. Jenna Bush. There's a time when she was petrified of her grandma. So first she starts off here dancing the Macarena dressed as her grandmother. Look at her, she's crazy as F. There's something else, maybe her interview with Michelle Obama. She's some serious crazy, right?
It is Jenna Bush, aka Mrs. Barbara Bush, getting into the 90s theme.
Did that just happen?
It's Matt Lauer. The now disgraced Matt Lauer.
Mrs. Bush to you, Savannah. Yeah, it's a good look for you.
To the Renaissance Fair?
All right, that was fun. And you know what? This is a flash forward to what I'm going to look like in my golden years.
Jenna, I have to ask, does your grandmother know you dressed up this way today?
Well, she may know. Willie, I'm glad you mentioned that because we just have to have someone
Look at her. She's freaking out.
who is joining us right now. Danny! First Lady Barbara Bush, Mrs. Bush, good morning. What do you think of our costumes and your granddaughter's likeness? Good morning. What do you think?
Well, I heard she was going to dress up like a witch, so I did too.
I didn't say that, Ganny. I didn't say that. That was Matt.
Look at her. She's all freaking out here. All crazy. Come on, Ganny. I didn't say you were a witch, Ganny. Don't lock me in the basement again, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I'll be a good girl, Ganny. Don't eat me, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I don't want to be eaten, Ganny. It was Matt, Ganny. Go eat Matt. Matt's going to be me too anyway. Eat Matt. Okay, so I went out shopping. I went to Whole Foods and a couple other these little stores that have some healthier foods. It's Monday. I usually go on Monday in the afternoon, but I went at 11, and it was crazy. These stores were crazy. So when my family and I were in Utah, my wife, came out to visit when we were courting. And we went to Vegas. My channel just got 100,000 subscribers at that time. And we went, we don't gamble or anything like that, but we went to the aquarium there and went to the Bellagio where the lights were. I was there in Vegas for a year, and I never really went to the Strip. So that was kind of fun. I mean, it's not my kind of thing, but we enjoyed it. And my daughter ordered this sous vide chicken, and she didn't eat it all, and we all tried it because it was so tender. Sous vide is it's a French word, so it's SOUSVIDE. VIBE, so vide. And I do a ton of cooking, and I cook our Thanksgiving turkey with sous vide. I cook the legs and the breast separately. It's in these, you put it on these BPA-free plastic bags, and it cooks it at a very low temperature. I cook the legs at 150 and the breast at like 145. And the breast is tender and not dry. Like, it's amazing. You know, you cook it it's just in a bag of water, so you can get the temperature up to whatever. So, and I'm not recommending people, you have to look for your own cook times and things like this. I cooked the legs for about 24 hours. And, I had to cut the legs. I ordered a bone saw thing on Amazon. And it got here today or yesterday. Because I was chopping it with a fucking cleaver. And it just sucked. And then the bones were kind of sharp. And they would cut the sous vide bag, and let water in. It was the whole thing. And, so I got that all taken care of today. They got the turkey and we just had turkey like 2 weeks ago, the same thing. And I make a chestnut apple stuffing that is amazing, which I had made in years, and then I made it like last year. And I think my wife was making the stuffing, and somehow I ended up saying I could do a chestnut stuffing. She said, okay, let's try that. But anyways, so it's just nuts out there. Like, I kind of get a holiday spirit. Like, I get Christmas spirit like 1 or 2 days a year. It's snow, and I enjoy the Christmas lights that other people put up. Right? But anyways, so I came back, and Megan Kelly, I left it, my tab open with her channel. And there's 2 other videos. One is 2 15-minute long videos with Erika Kirk. And I just can't fucking do it. Like, I'll maybe do it tomorrow. And so, the video that she put out earlier today, the Erika Kirk, I guess there's 3 videos up there now. One has 93,000 views, the other 110. So, she's delivering some level of views, but that's not, Maggie Kelly seems to average about, she's got a fluctuation, but plus 20,000 views. Some like 250,000, some 100,000, some 70,000. So, that's within her normal range in terms of this whole thing. But anyways, I don't want to deal with any more Erika Kirk shit today. I'm too tired out from Thanksgiving Day. So there were a number of comments here. Let's start with this one, the first one. That's this. All right. So, a lot of these are going to be about, this is to the Erika Shekels Kirk destroyed MAGA, Old Testament. All right, so I don't know what this is. There's an old video. I have the title cut off there. But the end of the title says, Erika Shekels Kirk destroyed MAGA and Old Testament, and that's cut off. Maybe the back end's cut off. I don't know. One of the 2 is cut off. And so, person says, went to the homie's house and shared your channel with them. We sat around chopping it up about politics and whatnot. I'm a big hit with the homies, laughing at the ridiculousness of it all. Fact of the matter is that none of us got a monopoly on the truth, including your particular system you refer to, which I'm actually interested in hearing more about. He's talking about the Sizemore system, and the Sizemore, there is no monopoly on the truth. There's the truth, and the truth in its bare basic form is, it is the divine God's truth, and nobody would be able to bear that fucking truth. When in the Mahabharata, and again, I'm not a Hindu, but I all of these religions, like I don't want to say I'm a fan, that's not, because being a fan is not I'm not a fan of really anything. I mean, I guess to some extent, things that I admire. I don't know if admire is the right word. People who I'm grateful for, certainly. Like, I'm grateful for every spiritual person that has come to this planet, every higher developed soul that's come down to this planet, even the most meager saints. I am very grateful for, because as bad as shit is now, if those saints hadn't come here, we'd be living in a fucking. I mean, it would be hell on earth. Like, when people show these post-apocalyptic nightmare, animalistic, fucking demonic, child sacrificing, fucking demon fest. Without those saints, that's what humanity would be right now. And so, the all the religious figures, whether it be Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, and I appreciate all of that, because they're all working for the same team. They're all working to, to elevate the human condition, and bring more God and spirituality to this planet. So, it's a unique perspective, because I'll take anything that's good from these religions, anything that's good from the Bible, like the kingdom of heaven is within. I mean, there's good teachings in the Bible. There's good teachings in all these books. And then there's the actual work, which is more important. The leaving, coming here and planet Earth and pulling up even a small village to a higher level of spirituality, producing spiritual energy on this planet is just, it's welcome, and it's really a great thing, and we should all appreciate it, right? But the divine truth, there was the beginning of the war part of the Mahabharata. Like, it's probably about 2/3 through the war is about 2/3 of the book. I'm just, as I remember it. I have to get a copy of it. I used to have one. I don't have it. Yeah. And so Krishna and Arjuna are a part of Vishnu's. Krishna is Vishnu's soul, and Vishnu is the cosmic functionary, the god of preservation. And Arjuna, who's the best archer and Krishna's best friend, is his ego. And they always incarnate together. There's always going to be an ego, and there's always going to be a soul. So the ego comes down as one person, and the soul comes down as another, which is kind of interesting. And Arjuna, at the beginning of the battle, his relatives, his cousins, who totally suck, and he kind of hates them. But his beloved uncle Bhishma, the guy who taught him archery, his beloved guru, of archery, Drona, and a number of other kings and higher people who are on the wrong side, and he's got to kill every fucking one of them, because he's like the only one of the brothers with the kind of archery skills you need. And so he's like, I can't kill these guys. And he breaks down. He's like, I can't do it. He just like throws down his bow. And, if Arjuna doesn't fight, then the war can't be won. It's like, part of the story. And so Krishna displays himself like so this is Arjuna as an ego looking at his soul. And it shows, this is where the guy from Oppenheimer said, I have become death, right? Even though he's a God in charge of preservation, not destruction. Like when he sees what Krishna really is as a soul, he fucking cowers and he goes, okay, I'll kill them all. Just don't ever show me that again, right? So he doesn't even want to see his own divine nature. And he's a higher developed soul, even as an ego, right? He's a cosmic functionary who doesn't even have to be on planet Earth. Like, he's not bound to planet Earth. He's he's on a higher level of existence. And this plays out through various other stories. Even some of the greatest saints are incapable of seeing the truth, right? The divine truth. So, like, this is a silly comment from, I mean, not that this, what he said, reviewing where this guy said this. Fact of the matter is that none of us have a monopoly on truth, including your particular system you refer to, which I'm actually interested in hearing more about. the Sajmark system, they don't hide shit. Like you know, there's no levels. Like you go into Freemasonry, and you get one level of truth when you're a first degree Freemason, and then all the way through up to what is it, 33 degree, where they give you the real fucking truth, right? There's no hazing. There's no you got to pass through this stuff. The books and the teachings are available to everybody, but in that, like, it's subtle and you won't understand it until you understand it. It took me a while to understand. You know, I got this preceptor book, and it was all about character development. I got to reread this book. I recently got 2 copies of it. To a copy of there was a preceptor training, and I couldn't wait to read the book. I read the first one, which is about sitting techniques. You know, giving these meditative sittings and things. And it's got a lot of great information in it. Like, so information that as a regular practitioner, you don't need to have. And the book on character development, you know, it's good for everybody because everybody in the system has to do it. But it's not like, oh, be kind or, you know, be fake like Erika Kirk and put a smile on and or look like a spiritual person like, oh, yes, my son, you know, act like a Yoda or, you know, some person who talks in, you know, it's none of that shit, right? It's like none of those like fake kind of things, or even doing it in real life. It's about how you're committing all of your energy and all of your thoughts. You know, not letting your mind wander around and daydream, and you know, not waste your time. You have to give all of you, every thought you have, every action you have to serving God. Like that's the example of Babaji, the second master of the system. And so you don't get this in other things, right? And so somebody asked Charji about, you know, to get the understanding of what it takes to reach these levels of spirituality. And he says, well, if everybody knew what it took, there would only be the 3 of us, meaning the 3 masters. Everybody would quit. You know, in that day, like I knew, like I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. Like, I'm like, it's just, I'm not capable of that kind of level of commitment to God, right? Like, I was completely bummed. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I might as well quit. Like, there's no fucking way, right? You know, like, there's a story where Charji, the third master of the system, sitting on a plane with the second master, and they're traveling to Europe. And Charji's, you know, he liked movies, and he liked Western culture. You know, he liked America and Europe, and, you know, he traveled quite a bit. Before he became the representative, he went to school overseas, and he's watching a movie and he's kind of enjoying it, and Babaji keeps on interrupting him and talking about Lalaji, you know, his master, or talking about God. You know, he's like, oh, Lalaji says this, and you know, I've learned this about God. He keeps on interrupting him. You know, Charji's got to take out those little headphones they used to have, and he misses that part of the movie. And he gets annoyed with Babaji. You know, Babaji's his master. He says, don't you ever talk about anything else but God and, you know, Lalaji? And he goes, and Babaji goes, what else is there? Right? Like, you know, Babaji went to Egypt with Charji, and he goes, we got to go see the pyramids. And he didn't go see sites. He didn't go to things. You know, he didn't like, you know. And so they're driving, and they can see a little dot in the distance. They can see the pyramid. And he goes, okay, let's turn around and go back. And Charji goes, well, you said you wanted to go see the pyramid. He goes, yeah, I saw it. And he goes, well, like, don't you want to go see it and look at it? And, you know, in the teachings of Sajmark's system, in the Whispers of the Brighter World, which are messages that Babaji gives after he dies, he says that the pyramids are interplanetary relay stations built by higher developed beings that came down here, which a lot of people know, you know, it's the truth, but he says it. But even then, he doesn't want to go see it, right? And Charji goes, well, why did you only do that? He goes, if we're going to drive all the way out here, why only see a little bit? He goes, well, everybody in my village is going to ask me when they find out I went to Egypt if I saw the pyramids, and they're going to think I'm a fool if I didn't. And so I went and I saw them, you know. But, you know, what he saw was like, you know, a little dot on the horizon, you know, but that was just so he didn't have to lie to people and say they didn't see the pyramid, right? Because, you know, a bunch of simple people that lived in his village, and, you know, Most of them didn't think much of him, didn't think he was a spiritual master. But anyways, let's get back to the comment. But I want to offer some clarification on a couple of things you touched on because you seem like good peeps. I am good peeps. Obviously, you've been beaten with so-called Christianity, but the Bible is not a piece of shit book. I have not been beaten by Christianity. I like Christianity in terms of, A, my Catholic upbringing. I didn't have any pedophile priests. My priests were all cool. My sister married an ex-priest. My mom went to church, and she went to Catholic charismatic meetings, and these people prayed for me, and as did my mom and grandmother who said the rosary. I used to do the rosary when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old with my mom. I went to some of her prayer meetings. I went to some of her things with her. I hung out with some of the nuns. I went to a year of Catholic school, and the nuns there were cool. I liked the school. No problems with any of it. And Christianity, if it wasn't for Christians, I couldn't have homeschooled my kids, which, I think that was mostly a good thing. My ex is the one who homeschooled them, and she kind of failed, but, Christians made homeschooling, and even in terms of the materials that are out there for homeschooling, you can't do it without Christians. And there's other things that Christians have done that I benefit from, like good Christians. So I have no issues with Catholicism and Christianity. And, my grandmother, my mom praying for me. I've had Christians pray for me, which I know had an effect and helps me. And I have a lot of Christians that come here. Even I used to have a reverend that used to come here because he knew what I was saying was the truth. And, and he wasn't getting that from his religion. Like, and it kind of, he was, this guy's a reverend. He had he was a pastor, right? So, obviously you've been beaten with so-called Christianity, but the Bible is not a piece of shit book. And I read the Bible, and I couldn't understand the New Testament because it's very abstract, but I liked the Old Testament when I was a kid because it was stories, right? And so none of those things are true. Like, I don't have any problem with Christianity or Christians. The Bible is not a good religious book. It has weird fucking demonic shit in it. And the being in the Old Testament is a demon, right? Like, by any measurable standard. And if you look at other religious and spiritual texts, even some New Age stuff, it's better than the Bible. And, when you have a God that's a punishing God and a fear-based God, well, let me read the rest of this. We'll come back to that. Obviously, you've been beaten with so-called Christianity, but the Bible is not a piece of shit book. There may be pieces of shit interpreting it, but it's just a book. All of these words we use to describe our experience of reality are just pointers, and we shouldn't get caught up on the finger. You're right. Jesus didn't have an ego issue. Jesus didn't have an ego issue when he said, "None of you can come to the Father but through me." He was simply, I don't think he said that, but if he did say that, then he was being egotistical. So I did say he had an ego. And Jesus saying that the only way to get to heaven is through me, and the Christian tradition, that's in the book, and that's problematic. As is, if you follow the book, the letter of the law. So here's the problem I have with this person and all the people that do this. There's stuff in the Sajmark book, right? In the books. Like Master Charji said, for example, that you guys should just have as many kids as possible. Because spiritual people don't have kids. And, like oftentimes they take a vow of celibacy, but educated people, rich people, and spiritual people don't have kids, right? And, usually poor people have kids. And those kids grow up often malnourished, often suffering from lack of education. I mean, especially if you go around it globally. And so there aren't many good places for saints to be born into, where, they're born into a place where their spiritual nature will be supported in some way. And, they'll be educated and, just have a life that isn't so fucking traumatic that they can't become spiritual. They can't, the trauma doesn't inhibit their work that they come down here to do. And so spiritual people should should just procreate And yeah, and so he said, birth control, like you just leave it up to God. And so we had 4 kids in 5 years. She had 2 kids before that. The problem was, like, she was batshit crazy. She had been sexually abused by her dad and physically, emotionally abused by her mom, and she was a perpetual victim and a fucking nightmare. And, my family wasn't great. And, our circumstances, we lived in poverty and stress and all these things. So, it's just the thing. My family just didn't become what I'd hoped it would become, my kids. And they didn't end up practicing spirituality. And so, but we followed that, right? We followed the teaching. I think we're probably the only people that did. And my ex was crazy and I'm stupid. And, like fucking, we lived through the books. And then there's these whispers of the brighter world teachings that prophesized what was going to happen to the world. And there's prophecies within the world, the current world the future world will be built on the bones and ashes of this current world. Like I get that image of, and I think it's the second Terminator movie where there's these AI tanks and AI vehicles rolling over piles of dead human skeletons, right? And that's what I see when I hear these lines. And the future world will be built on spirituality as its base. And, there's so many people in the Sahaj-Marg method that don't live by the teachings. They don't even read the books. And there's lots of Christians that do that as well. You can't call it the Word of God and then cherry pick what you believe or not. So if you're calling the book the Word of God, which it isn't, there's no book that's the Word of God, because books are just books. But if you're going to follow the book, then, that land that's now owned by 7 other countries is, God promised that to Israel. And that's affecting fucking right now millions upon millions of people on a global basis, not just those people in that region, because it's an oil-rich region and it's always been destabilized. And all those fucking evangelical people that believe in that shit, who believe in the Bible, and you should believe in it if you're a fucking Christian, that's the problem. They say it's the Word of God. And if it's the Word of God, then you need to follow it to the letter of the law. And if you follow it to the letter of the law, you do shit like circumcise your kids and cut off a sensitive organ that God put there for a fucking reason, right? Or you go and invade countries and you beat the shit out of people and you force them to give up their culture because you believe that you're saving them and they're going to hell if you don't save them, because that's what it says in the fucking Bible. So yeah, it does fucking matter, right? It does matter. It is a piece of shit book. You know how much suffering there is because of John 3:16? All the damage Christians have done to fucking people. And again, it isn't fucking me. They didn't do it to me. Like, I grew up as a Christian and I'm grateful for my religious upbringing. My mom had catechism in her house, and I have no bad experience with Christianity personally. But I know it's been done, right? And everyone should know it's been done. And, and bullshit stuff, right? So anyways, Jesus didn't have an ego issue when he said, none can come to Father but through me. He was simply stating that regardless of the label you slap on it, there's only one way to get to God, and that's where you'll meet him. You don't know what he was meant. Like, I don't know what he's meant, and we don't know if he even said it, right? That's why it's a piece of shit book, because, it's been edited so many times. The Old Testament is just horrible, fucking unspiritual. It's demon worship, right? They're not worshiping God, they're worshiping a demon. So that's bad. But the other stuff with Jesus, we don't know what he said and what he didn't say. It's just basically hearsay. It's 2,000 years old. And it wasn't Jesus' own words. It's quotes that you got from other people who may or may not have an agenda or misunderstood him. And then we're interpreting it 2,000 years later. And so we don't know what it meant. You can think you know what it means. This happened in Sahaj-Marg when there was a living master. And you could go to the living master and say, what did you mean by this? And, he might give you a different answer than somebody else. And so each person, as soon as there wasn't a living master, or as soon as this guy Dodgy took over, the whole thing went to shit, right? When Jesus was dead, then people could start misinterpreting all what he said. And he said a lot of things that end up becoming, bad things, like you can only get through the Father through the Son, and that's, He was simply stating that regardless of the label you slap on it, there's only one way to God, and that's where I'll meet you. When you're talking about circumcision of the heart, you're right again. There's no literal foreskin of the heart. It's simply another point to the fact that we have to consciously address the short-sighted natural instincts we have if we want to find genuine clarity. It's stupid fucking shit to say, like, yeah, but, you know, to dumb fucks that the foreskin was a big deal who lived in a circumcision culture, foreskin on the heart was important. But it was an important metaphor for those people. But you don't need it 2,000 years later, and it certainly isn't the word of God. And so, you know, like I talked about the sophistication of the cleaning process, which is samskaras, you know, and so that's a much better teaching. And there might be a more evolved teaching that we can't comprehend yet. That's possible. There's always something deeper. But the stuff with samskaras has been around for 200,000 years. Only select people like in ancient India used to know about it. And, you know, the soul came from that very same place. And so you don't need this fucking retarded fucking explanation about foreskins on the heart when samskaras and, you know, spiritual, you know, chakras and things like that was available, which is a much more accurate description of what goes on spiritually. It's simply another point for the fact that you have to consciously address the short-sighted natural instincts we have when we want to find genuine clarity. Otherwise, we are likely to be skewed in our perspectives and be unaware of our other limiting biases. So is that what you and your homies talked about? Anyways, you know, so much for me being good peeps. Wish there was more humans like you, Paul. Yeah, I wouldn't get along with like my clones. So there's got to be a limited amount of us because I know we don't get along with each other. There's got to be, you know, there's lots better people that I've met that did the Sajmark system. Of course, many of them shit the bed when they, you know, when this thing with Dodgy happened. So this one, Trump completely loses his shit. Erika and TPUS gay. The book of Samuel is good because it shows the foundation of Israel. Samuel could be the same character as Samuel. From AI research results on Google for the book of Samuel Bible, it says the book of Samuel is a book in the Old Testament that chronicles Israel's transition from tribal judges to be a unified monarchy under a king. It focuses on three key figures: the prophet Samuel, Israel's first king Saul, and the rise of King David. The book covers Samuel's birth and the role of anointing the first two. Yeah, okay, fuck, who gives a shit? You know, the thing about spiritual people, and none of these people in the Bible are spiritual. I mean, in the Old Testament, there is not one saint amongst them, and the God that they present there is a demon, you know, narcissistic, jealous, petty, angry, self-involved demon that isn't really what God's like at all. That isn't even a good representation of God, right? Where people can't understand abstract God as an essence, as a feeling, as love, as something that's etheric. They can't understand an etheric God. They can't understand an etheric soul. Okay, great. So they need remedial teachings, right? That's fine, but it's not real spirituality. And none of these people are spiritual or saintly. David was cut off 200 foreskins to get his bride. He only needed to cut off 100. He murdered these Philistine people and cut off their fucking foreskins because I guess whoever the king was at that time, which I guess was Saul. But none of these people are spiritual. This story isn't worth listening to. The shit in the Old Testament is not spiritual. It's not good examples. It's not even interesting stories. I loved the Ten Commandments movie when I was a kid, with Moses and, Charlton Heston. I watched it every year. It was a 2-part thing. They'd show it usually like on Saturday and Sunday night on Easter. And I watched it every year. I liked it until I got old enough to realize that it wasn't that good, right? And the story itself is not, what I know about divinity now, it's not a good story. And so these people aren't spiritual. There's much better stories in the Indian culture and native cultures here in America and various places around the world. There's great Druidic stories, that are about nature and things like that. But the pursuit of yoga, of union with God, which is real spirituality, it centers in India, and they have a long history of it. And even those stories aren't. I mean, their stories are good, and sometimes it's helpful, but it's really associated with people right now that are on a spiritual path, and you can look up to and emulate, and that's the key. And that doesn't exist in Christianity, at least in terms of people who are bound to the book, right? If you become a spiritual person, the best thing is to use Jesus' example and become spiritual like him and connect to the divinity within you. And there's better methods out there. In fact, there's no method in Christianity to do that because they've erased it from the book. Jesus meditated, and they don't. And it says meditation in the heart somewhere in the Bible, but that's. I mean, it's a very it's something that's kind of ignored. But that's the way that you connect to God. You find God in your heart, you meditate on him, and there has to be some cleaning and some, whatever. There's a process involved. You can also do it through true pure prayer, but they don't really give you a method, and they don't give you a practice that you can do every day to connect to God. They don't want you to connect to God. That's the whole point. Like if you connect to God, then you don't need them. So this person says, to this is TPUS gay people keeping incriminating themselves. Trump continues to lose it. Your point is well taken, Paul. Unfortunately, many white people don't think as critically as you. I'm definitely no fan of Michelle. Yes, I think she's a dude, but she speaks truth here. I know that from your experience, black kids all over the U.S. have been kicked out of class solely due to their hair. People aren't as logical as you, but if they were, we wouldn't need the Crown Act, a combat hair discrimination. And don't get me started on how some white people feel they have permission to walk up and touch a black person's hair. I've known many good and decent white people, dated a white woman, but all of them fail to see the subtlety of bigotry. That's weird, and I don't know why white people would. I don't know how you would go and touch anybody's hair. I know that people are, I kind of try to be invisible, and I don't, people don't approach me, right? I'm not approachable. People are wary of me when they see me, whatever, for the most part. Not like, necessarily totally intimidated, but, I'm not a person that exudes friendly vibes. But when I had my kids, I'd be carrying my kids in a grocery store. They'd be sitting there in the shopping cart or whatever, as toddlers, but especially as babies. And people would come up and try to touch my kid. Like, get the fuck out of here, and they would approach me, which they wouldn't do normally, but they through, the kid, not that they wanted to have anything to do with me, but people come up and they think they can touch babies and these things. I'll get into everything else with this comment in a second, but I want to get through these other comments. Fun fact, Kyle Dunnigan and Kurt Metzger were Sad Dumplings joke writers. Yeah, Kyle Dunnigan dated Sad Dumpling. But, Kyle Dunnigan is really funny. Like that, I mean, he's a good comedian. He's one of my favorite comedians, and certainly on YouTube, his show, and I really enjoy his characters. But, so, I mean, I don't care. If you're good, you're good, right? Like, I don't care what you are. If you're good at your job, I appreciate it. If you've reached a level of mastery of something, and especially, like either someone makes you laugh or they don't. I don't know what kind of people they are. Louis C.K. is really funny, but aside from his, his Me Too thing, he says some really fucked up shit too, which kind of wrecks his jokes to some extent. But he's legitimately funny, but seems to be sort of a degraded person. Somebody wrote, so there's that one. The second comment's about Fetterman getting the jab. So this person writes, every white woman I know blow dries or uses an iron on their hair to make it straight. Not sure why Michelle thinks that black women have the cornered the market on that. And yep, she's appropriating white culture, and not really. And then complain about it. and blaming us for her appropriation is pretty insane. She's really gone off the deep end. I got more comments. I mean, this is just a fraction of the comments. And then somebody else, and the person wrote before that. The way I know this guy is claiming, oh, this is something else. It's about the bullet. And then this one, owner of the Sky News is a Comcast major shareholder, are Vanguard and BlackRock. So Sky News out of Australia is owned by Vanguard and BlackRock. Jewish CEO Brian Roberts is worth $1.4 billion. And then it says below that, I dislike the term white. We are European. Race shouldn't be reduced to skin color. You know, like this is a problem with all these things. The fact that people think about things in terms of black and white. You know, and I want to get back to this other stuff and there's one more comment here. But, you know, I have tan skin. Like I still have a tan from the summer, and I'm still darker than an average Caucasian person. You know, because my grandparents came from Sicily, and I've always been, you know, a person that enjoys the sun. I have a relationship with the sun from past lives, and, you know, whatever it is, I feel good when I have, you know, like I'm having regular interaction with the sun. Certainly there's vitamin D benefits, but it's more than that. It's more than just physical. And there are lots of variations of colors of black people. You know, if you say black or white, you know, there's very light-skinned black people and there's very dark-skinned white people, right? And, you know, when I was first playing basketball, and sometimes I'd be the only white guy in the court, right? And, you know, I was there, and I came from a suburb, and, you know, I had some experiences. My family, I mean, my parents worked, my dad worked in the inner city as a guidance counselor at Hartford, at Buckley High School. And there was, you know, I mean, I was always playing sports, and I had some interactions with various people. A lot of Jewish people lived in West Hartford. You know, and I didn't think about these things in terms of any of that when I was a kid. It made me uncomfortable when I heard people say things that were racially motivated because, you know, I didn't, you know, and I liked most people back then. When I was a kid, I was much more pro people. You know, but my best friend from high school was, you know, I said he was what he called mulatto, but he was biracial, what people would call biracial now. And he grew up in Syracuse, and he always grew up in suburbs. You know, his dad was whatever he did, he was rich. He had these, you know, giant speakers, and he used to listen to jazz, and, you know, like his dad was like cool. But, you know, he didn't know very much about the black culture. Like he grew up in white suburban neighborhoods. And I started playing basketball, and I saw these guys ragging on each other for being dark-skinned or light-skinned. And I was like, fuck, there's even prejudice within this group of people. And I knew from growing up in Connecticut, I look ethnic, you know, I look Italian. And my dad experienced racism, you know, ethnic, you know, whatever. Italians and Irish people were considered scummy, you know, low-life immigrants. Like they were, you know, the way that people don't like Mexicans now. You know, Mexicans used to be Irish and Italian, and, you know, they certainly felt that way about the Chinese. You know, these various groups came in, and they were considered dirty. You know, the Catholics were prejudiced against, right? But the Protestants were, you know, there was just all these various ways that people have of demonizing other people. And my dad certainly suffered, you know, whatever it is, prejudice. He had two friends, both of them were Jewish guys, when he went to Rutgers University, you know, and they looked down on these people, right? And, you know, Sicilians are different than Italians. Like there's, you know, within all these cultures. And, of course, you know, you go to India and there's all the caste prejudice and all these things. People always find a way to be better than other groups and these things. But even within those groups themselves, there's prejudice. You know, there was a time where we would go to the ashram, and there's this woman, and she used to be there telling where people got to sit. You know, there's people sitting on the floor, Indian people, and then Western people on the chairs. And she was telling people where they could sit. Like she would move these women around based on their caste or based on how rich they were. I don't know what it was, right? And they, they had to fucking abolish it. They had to get rid of the woman and say, what the fuck are you doing? This isn't what this thing's about. So, we're here to focus on our souls and not about these things. And, so there's all that kind of bullshit that goes on in the world, right? And so the way that they characterize people as black or white in these categories, and you don't know what you have, and, you can take your 23 from me and find out that you have, like Pocahontas, what is her name? Elizabeth Warren has, 1/16,000th of a Native American, possible Native American marker in her genetic. Remember, Trump baited her into taking a DNA test. But, like people aren't white and, and most black people aren't black. And, some people have a red or yellow and, black people have various, different kinds of complexions. And it's not something that, as you get older, and if you're in the sun more, your complexion gets dark, and our complexions are always changing. Like, it's a silly fucking thing, and you get dragged down into it, and you shouldn't. Like, one thing is everyone that's here should be focused on their soul. Like, everyone comes to my YouTube channel. Like, you should forget about everything being American or any of these things, because just for this time that you're listening to these videos. Not that you have to adopt my way of seeing things, but really it's about who you are as a soul. And that's what I focus on here. All the other, there's all this other bullshit that people have, their demographics and these fucking category and boxes they put people in. So, but not here. Like, it just doesn't belong here. And this person writes, your point on things with black hair convo, you're a little off a little. And Michelle didn't do a great job of bringing things up. But black hair can be a tension point. Just Google this referee that cut the black hair's focus during a wrestling match just because other people fired or having afros, etc. As a white dude, I give you grace to know all the ins and outs. And then somebody wrote under that, the ref didn't do it because it was a hazard during wrestling, not just because the young man could have forfeited the game. But rules are rules, and long hair of any sort can pose a problem. Okay, so I want to make this clear about all this kind of bullshit, right? So before the internet, before there was like internet like there is now, YouTube wasn't a thing yet. Email had just become a thing. This is back AOL days, right? In the 2000s. And we had a neighbor, and the neighbor had received this email, and it talked about how when the Bushes dealt with Secret Service, like this was a Secret Service person. This was somebody who claimed to work with the Secret Service. And right there, it should be a violation because that's a felony. Like, they can't go out and leak data. This is classified information. Their interactions with the president. So this person was, the Republicans are supposed to care about shit like that, right? But these people didn't. And so, because what it said was the Bushes would always would greet courteously the Secret Service people. And they would, be nice to them and ask them about their families. They knew all their names. Where the Clintons were always rude, particularly Hillary. This is a time where Hillary was getting ready to run for president, being groomed to run for president. And it demonized the Clintons. And this guy, this old guy, was certainly a Republican. And I knew it was fake. Like, it was well done. It was like, something, but it was clearly fake. And they know how to put out this disinformation. They've done this for years about other groups and things that piss you off, right? And you see it on Fox News all the time. You see it on the left. Certain thing will be said here, a certain thing will be said there. Sometimes it'll be done intentionally to give each other cover. And it's all bullshit, right? It's not real problems. I talked about this with immigration. Like I said, how many of you people out there, because, Tucker Carlson was beating the drum of immigration's going to ruin our country, and all these people, we're going to take all our jobs, and there's gangs coming in from Venezuela. I remember this video of these guys walking around with machine guns in a hallway. And I knew it was all fake because, I see immigrants all the time doing jobs that no one else wants to do. Like I'm saying, if you've lost a job to an immigrant, and some people have, like I know of like one person that's, that I, barely know, through my wife, that her husband does some sort of construction, and he's, in competition with illegals, and they can provide things that he can't because, they don't have to pay insurance and things like that, right? But in terms of the illegal immigration problem, most people don't have any direct connection to it. They just hear stories from Fox News and other people. And this is what this hair thing is. It's the same fucking thing. You don't see it. There's one story of some fucking white wrestling coach that demanded that some guy cut his fro. And like, it's not fucking real. It's like, yeah, maybe that one story is real, but they don't tell you the whole. I mean, you see this all the time. They're just trying to provoke you into division, and they come up with these stories. Because I guarantee you, the majority of white people don't give a shit about how black people wear their hair. In fact, you see this more and more when you watch sports. And there are people that are, there's, young, like kids there's kids that coming out of college and NBA that don't do anything with their hair at all. It's just nappy. They don't even have a fro. Like I see it, young basketball players have this. There's a guy named Derek Queen I just saw play the other day as a rookie. And his hair is just, messy. Like what we used to call bedhead. Where you don't comb it, you don't put any product in it, you don't do anything with it at all. And that's my kind of stuff. Like my hair is cut very short, and, I have a lot of colics, and it was always a pain in the ass. And there's times I had to fucking put hair gel and fucking shit and whatever in it. And now it's just, it's short enough, and I just don't give a fuck because I'm old, and who gives a, who cares if you're fucking some 60-year-old fucking dude has fucking messy hair. But the majority of people just don't give a shit about anybody else's hair and these things. And there isn't some movement where white people are trying to tell black people they can't have natural hair. It's just made up. It's just there to upset you. It just like all these other things, all the white people get upset about immigrants and they're going to steal your jobs and, and the whatever replacement population. I mean, that may or may not be true, but right now it doesn't affect you at all because you're not aware of it. You're just being told this by people who are liars and lie about shit all the time and just trying to provoke division, right? You should be able to, if you're watching my videos, see the difference here. That, I always say this when I hear something. My wife gets a lot more right-wing propaganda because she goes on Reddit, some of these other things, and she used to be a Republican, and so she sees some of these things. And, if you search them and you go through, like, fact check them, not some bullshit thing like Snopes, but, you just look into it, you can see they're just exaggerating. My wife told me the other day that they're all going nuts about, the right-wingers, about Mandani teaching Arabic numerals, which is what they get already, right? We all learn about Arabic numerals, right? But they're, they just make things up to upset you. They come up with these things and to exaggerate them, and just because they know how to rile people up and divide them, right? This is what all this is about. Michelle Obama's making a big deal about that. There is cultural pressure, like when black kids used to grow up and there was only white dolls, black girls would have to play with white Barbies because there was no black Barbies. When I was a kid, there was a black G.I. Joe, which my cousin got. We used to have these G.I. Joes, and, and he had one that was a black, there's like, it was kind of a new thing. This is the 70s. But, they didn't recognize that there was a whole market there. It's like, was it 17% of the population now was considered black, right? And just like they're realizing this with Hispanics, in terms of a global, if you're trying to sell global music, you have all these people, 1 billion of them or whatever it is, right? In South America, these other places, and, Asians and all these people. They want to market to these foreign, they want to be inclusive to market to these, various groups and demographics. Back then, if you grew up, all you saw was white things, right? Black people weren't properly represented on television ads, but now you see it all the time. How many times you see an ad and it's interracial marriage? Like, it's like they don't even want to have it. Pretty much like all these ads now have interracial marriage and all these kind of things. And also, like I said, there's all these piercings. I went to this grocery store, like Fresh Market or whatever it is, And the girl who checked me out, nice girl, she was kind of obese, overweight, and she had a tattoo that went up from her neck and then onto her face. It was a pattern. Like I was trying to figure out how they fucking got it over her chin. I mean, I'm not trying to stare and shit, but I'm always like observing what's going on out there. And she's got multiple face tattoos, and she's at a foodie place, like it's a food place where foodies go. They have some health food, but mostly it's like foodies. And and I'm like, she's got all these piercings and tattoos on her fucking face, and that's just acceptable now. And I mean, that's what the youth is doing, and people are just over these things, and these kids have messy hair now, and they come to work unkept, and they're listening to their headphones, and the employees are desperate, right? There's two guys. There's a guy in front of me, and there's a young college kid who was working at Whole Foods. I was talking about how I love this deaf guy. Like, I always look for the deaf guy's line. At first I'm like, oh, this is going to be an issue. The guy showed me a piece of paper that said I'm deaf, and I'm like, fuck, this is going to be an ordeal. And then I realized the guy was fast as fuck, and we didn't have to talk. I gave him the thumbs up and, whatever, smiled, and, a genuine smile. I can't fake smile. Because I was like, man, I don't have to fucking talk to this person. Like, I can go through this whole fucking experience. I don't have to fucking say shit, because, I went to the old guy the next time. After I went to the deaf guy twice in a row. Then I went to an old guy, and he said that I smelled like fucking 2-cycle motor oil. And I'm like, I have no fucking response to that. Jesus Christ, where are we going with this? And so there's this young guys, and they're talking about fantasy football. And I'm putting my shit up there, and I want to get out of the store. I want to get to these other stores, but the later it goes, the less shit there is that you need to get, and then the more crowded it gets. And I don't want to have to come back out after Thanksgiving, or before Thanksgiving. So, this is it. I want to get everything done. And they're still talking about some quarterback shit, right? And the guy's like, sorry to me. I'm like, fuck, I don't care if you're talking to that guy. Just ring me up, right? Start fucking, you don't have to say hi. I don't give a shit, but just let's get going here, bro. So anyways, all this stuff is fake is what I'm saying. It's exaggerated stuff, and they make you think, things that are happening aren't really happening. And they make you think that there's a movement within, if there was a real movement, you'd see it on Fox News. You see them talking about, is there any segments on Fox News where they're talking about black hair? This would be a small fringe group of white people that really are trying to, stop black people from having natural hair. And, maybe white people touch black people's hair like this person says, but I don't know anybody that would do that, right? This is like different times, right? It's, people are just on edge all the time, and I just, But either way, it's all fucking fake. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Let me say this, though. I watched this thing with the basketball player Jeff Teague. He has, the 5:20 in the morning podcast. And he was talking about how, they always try to make it like these NBA players are rooting for each other and there's camaraderie on the team. And he said, they were rooting for the guys to fail. Any NBA player who gets hurt, they're watching their replacement and hoping their replacement doesn't do better than them. I worked with this guy. He was a Division II linebacker. He was a guy who loved going hiking. It's when I lived in New Mexico. He would go out camping for days. He had worked at a place where he would take disadvantage. He'd take shitty kids out to the woods, and they would camp for weeks until they all the fucking attitude and shit was beat down out of them from living in the tents and these things. I was living in a shared house, and this one guy did that job. He has a degree in counseling or something. He had a master's degree, and he would take kids out, and these were rich kids. And this guy I was working with used to do that job, right? And he talked about how when he was a Division II linebacker, when he walked by his replacement, like the guy who was coming in to do his job, to take, they have reps and snaps and practice, right? And so this guy's a backup. And he'd go, send in the B players, and he would say it right to his replacement as they walked in. And he say it all the time. He said because he wanted to keep a mental advantage. You know, he wanted to make sure the guy always thought of himself as a backup, right? Because, you know, there's a chance the coach will look at him and go, hey, that guy's actually a little bit faster than the other guy. He's a little bit better. He hits a little bit harder, you know, and so you want to undermine the guy's confidence. And so you see all these guys on the bench rooting for their teammates. And, you know, it's a very competitive thing. Plus, they practice against each other and they play each other in practice. And so, you know, although a lot of these things are specific about these demographics are bullshit, for the most part, people are very selfish, very competitive, and they're rooting against other people. And they want other people to fail, and they're fucking hateful. And they like it when other people suffer, especially the demographics or people that they don't agree with. And we live in a very shitty world. Like, that's the truth of it. But these specific things, you know, that people are out to get you and about specific things like your hair or these things, you know, they might think it, or they might think things like that, but, you know, they are very self-involved and they don't really think about, you know, unless they're like specifically hating a demographic, they almost never think about other people. The average human being is thinking about themselves like a crazy amount of the time. The average person thinks about themselves, you know, 90% of the time, I would say, or 70%, right? Like, people don't think about other people, don't think about how to make other people happy. And they don't even understand or recognize other people. They don't understand what makes other people tick. They don't think about these things. I know this because I do. I think about these things all the time. Like, I'm wondering why that girl got that fucking tattoo on her fucking face, right? Like, what was behind that choice? Like, that's something interesting. Like, but I can't ask her, hey, why'd you get that fucking tattoo on your fucking face? And I'm wondering because it's fucking weird as shit. And it seems like it must probably have hurt. And you're going to be wearing that the rest of your life. She's like a 22-year-old girl. Nice girl. Like, she seemed nice. You know, nice person. But she's, you know, like, how did that help you out, right? You know, I mean, it's like fucking, you know, it's a choice that you're going to be living with the rest of your life, and it's not a good one. But people don't care. People don't think about it, right? And so that's just how it is. And so, you know, like this idea that people are just sitting there, you know, hating on you, you know, they're just only with the, you know, people who are really hateful and really bored. But even then, they're thinking about themselves. Almost every negative comment I receive has nothing to do with me. And it's about some butthurt fucking bullshit thing or misunderstanding or, you know, thing that's coming from this person. It's about them, right? Almost these comments is about them and not me. You know, it seems like they're mad at me and it seems like they're talking about me, but they're really talking about themselves because people are self-involved. Anyways, I got to wrap this one up. Only spirituality will save this world. It's part of how definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.